Shalom, 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 people of the Most High. We greet you in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, the B'nai Elohim, the Son of God, the Savior from Nazareth. We greet you once again. This is the Defender of the Way, and we're back with another part. This is part 5 to our series. The letter, let's talk about the letter to the Galatians. This is the series that has the Christian urban apologetic community in an uproar. Most of them are confounded. We have been bringing out some very pertinent information regarding a sound exegesis or interpretation of Paul's letter to the Galatians. We've been using his history and the contextual approach to our interpretation. We're not going to belabor the point there. For those of you guys that are already tuned in, please go ahead, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Help us get this word out. Definitely share this link so that we can get the word out there. And we would greatly appreciate it. I'm here with my brother Yehukanan, DeMonte Yehukanan Poulden in the building. And hopefully Sister Shanti and all of her awesomeness will join us shortly. Brother B.A. will not be able to make it tonight, and neither will Brother Renzo, but we're going to move forward. This is part 5. We're looking to end this series on this evening. So get your notebooks together, get your pen, your pad together, and take notes. For those of you guys out there that may have questions, you can go ahead and post those questions in the chat. We will attempt to get to them. I see you, Sister Sheikah. Shalom, sis. We will attempt to get to all of your questions there. At the end of this session, maybe next week, we'll have an open panel discussion and a telephone number for you guys to call in with any questions that you have. On last week, we had the brother, I forgot his name already. What was his name, bro? We had a brother on here last week.
Deshaun Jeffries.
Okay, brother. Deshaun Jeffries. He is a Christian and a Pauline Christian there, and he had some questions. He also had some different perspectives, which we entertained. He's a viewer. He's been watching this series, and he wanted to challenge our interpretation on the book of Galatians. And so we had him on the panel, and we may have him. He says he's not finished, so we may have him on again. For those of you guys that are listening, if you have any questions, disagreements, we welcome those as well. Different perspectives. We do not have all of the information. We, as the Bible say, we know in part, and so there may be something that you guys can bring to the table. We've done our best to do good sound due diligence, dealing with the historical, the linguistic, and the contextual approach to the book of Galatians, to Paul's letter to the Galatians. We appreciate everyone that are tuning in, everyone that will tune in. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my brother Yehukanan.
Hey, shalom to everybody. I appreciate the support from everybody. I appreciate those who disagree and who wants to bring information, even to show where I'm wrong. Like the brother said, I'm always open to listen. We don't know everything, and I don't know everything. I learn from different people. I learned from my brother Sam. I learned from my Sister E. I learned from my sister Sheikah Johnson. I learned from Sister Ashanti. I learned from Brother B.A. I learned from even the opposition, from G-Con, from Kevin G, from Cherry Love, even to So Real. I learned from different people's perspectives, and I'm always willing to listen. And I want to say shout out to Yahweh War Machine. Shout out to Brother Yara, Brother Orthodox War, Brother Anonymous Hebrew, Gideon, and DJ Black Charm. Anybody from the War Machine that I missed out, please forgive me. I want to say shout out to Showtime Sal. He's one of the first people who gave me his platform to be on. And I want to say shout out to Solar Vision. He's one of the people who've basically helped me grow my skills in showing PowerPoints and presenting my information. And everybody who played a major part in this. I want to thank Sister Shanti's brother Renzo, because I learned from him as well. Brother BA, Brother Sam, everybody that was on the panel, everybody that put in the work, to make this happen. I hope to edify you guys tonight. We're going to get into a lot of information tonight. This here, I think we knocked it out the park when we got to chapter 3. Tonight is going to be a good night. So, shalom to everybody. Oh, just let me know when you're ready for me to present the information, Sam.
Yeah, we ready for you.
Okay, that's cool.
I want to say shalom to Sister Peggy Russell out there. Shalom, I appreciate you tuning in. All of you guys that I can't see that are tuned in, we appreciate you out there. Go ahead, bro. It's on you, bro.
I just hit the share the screen, so let me know when I can share my screen, and I want to show my PowerPoint. Let me know when you can see my. Can you see my PowerPoint, brother?
I can see it. I'm trying to add it now. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay. You should be added, bro.
All right. So can y'all see?
Yeah, we can see, bro.
Okay, good. Okay. So we'll get started. Just get to my point. We should be good. We'll probably end it tonight, man. You know what I'm saying? Because the majority of we got it done tonight. So I think Yahuwah, he gave us the right information to do what we need to do. Okay, here we go. So now I'm finna make my screen bigger, and we finna get started. Okay, so tonight, here we go. So listen, this is the definition of Torah, right? And I got this out of the Bible Concordance. And I think people have the wrong idea when they think of law. I don't know what they're thinking. I think they're thinking about do's and don'ts and punishment. And so, they that's not the Hebrew way of Torah or law. So here is Bible Concordance in the Hebrew 8451 is the word Torah. Torah, a precept or statute. The catalog or the Pentateuch, right? The law. Summary: Torah signifies primary direction, teaching, instructions. Proverbs 13:14. It is derived from the verb yara, to project, point out, and hence to point out or teach. The law of God is that which points out or indicates his will to man. Okay? So the law's purpose is to point out Elohim's will for man or to man. It is not an arbitrary rule. Still, it is a subject impulse. It is rather to be regarded as a course of guidance from above. Okay, so let me read this again. It is rather to be regarded as a course of guidance from above. Seen against the background of the verb yara, it becomes clear that Torah is much more than a law or a set of rules. Torah is not restrictions or hindrance, but instead the means whereby one can reach a goal or idea. So this is basically the purpose of the Torah. And that's just a portion of what I got out of the Bible Concordance for its definition. So now listen to here, because the problem is this. People have gotten away from Torah, okay? And what I'm about to read to you, this is from the book of Eusebius, okay? And this is out of book 6. And here's what Eusebius was saying. Okay, and I'm gonna zoom in on this one because I really want you guys to see this. Okay.
Is this the church history from Eusebius, bro?
Yes, this is church history from Eusebius right here.
Right.
Okay, and this is book 6. And listen what it says. It says, in describing the situation at the time of Hegapus, goes on to say that until then, the church had remained a virgin, pure, and uncorrupted, since those who were trying to corrupt the wholesome standard of the saving message, if such there were, lurked somewhere under cover of darkness. But when the sacred band of the apostles had in a various ways reached the end of their life, and the generations of those privileged to listen with their own ears to the divine wisdom had passed on, then godless error began to take shape through the deceit of false teachers, whom now that none of the apostles was left, threw off the mark and attempted to counter the preaching of the truth by preaching the knowledge falsely so called. And see, this is the problem. Somewhere after first century, the church fell off. It became dark. When Eusebius is writing this is around what, 300, 400 AD when he's writing this, and the church has been in darkness for a very long time, and the body is now starting to wake up. I would say church fathers like Polycarp, they're pretty good to read. If I am not mistaken, when you read about the church of Smyrna or whatever, Smyrna, I really believe that it is talking about Polycarp, because during the time when the book of Revelations was written, Polycarp was basically the bishop of Smyrna. And Polycarp believed in keeping Torah as well as preaching and teaching Messiah. So that church father I agree with. I have to do some more research about the other church fathers, but I'm pretty sure I mostly agree with the church fathers from the first century. I probably would agree with, but anything after that, I advise the people really not to deal with, because that's basically when the church began to fall away. So before I go on, I'm gonna yield and see if Sam has anything he wants to say or add into.
Pretty much, Eusebius is a Christian bishop, part of the Pauline Christian tradition, and he's writing during the 4th century. And so he wrote a prolific history of how he viewed the formation and the continuance of the Nazarene kahal, or church, if you will. And so this is why bro is bringing this in as a historical backdrop to the book of Galatians. We're attempting to get an understanding, a correct understanding of the letter that Paul wrote to the Galatians. And in order to do that, we got to take a look at the historical context as well. And that's what bro is doing here. He's in Eusebius church history. What book was that, bro? Give it to him again. Give him that source.
See, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, bro.
Book 6 of Eusebius church history.
Okay, bro, it's on you.
Okay. So now let's go on. Okay, so let's read Galatians 5, chapter 5, verses 1 through 4. Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith Messiah hath made us free, and be not entangled again with the yoke of bondage. Behold, I, Paul, say unto you that if ye be circumcised, Messiah shall profit you nothing. For I testify again to every man that is circumcised, that he is a debtor to do the whole law. Messiah is become of no effect unto you. Whosoever of you are justified by the law, you are fallen from grace. Okay. So now let's look, because I'm finna get into this. I got everything for this. So look, people say, well, listen here. See, he's talking about the Torah's bondage and all this. Well, we did establish last week that David said that basically the Torah is liberty, right? And we did establish that the Messiah said that what is written cannot be broken. Okay. And it stands. Plus, I put any challenge out there to anybody who has a different view. Please show me where the Messiah said that the Torah or the law or the, is bondage. Can you please show me that chapter and verse that the Messiah said the law was bondage? He never taught the Messiah that, okay? Now, remember what I showed you earlier. I talked about circumcision, and that was basically how you became a part of the Judaism. That's to Judaize. That was the main formula for them to Judaize, okay? So now, when we get into the other verse where it says debtor to the whole law, he's not talking about the law of Moses. And I'm going to prove that tonight, and we're going to see what he's talking about, okay? Far as this being justified by the law, that was the whole purpose. Remember, I told you that they had a way of trying to be justified, or be purified, or sanctified by these ritual purifications. So that's what Paul is addressing here. So the yoke of bondage is these ritual purifications that they were trying to do to say that they're justified, that they're right standing with the Most High. So Paul is letting them know, if you're trying to be justified by that way, you have fallen from grace, because you're looking at a deed and you're putting your faith more into bulls and goats, the bloods of bulls and goats, which we covered that in Hebrews 9, where we show what Torah, or what instructions that was temporary, that the Messiah came to get away with because he brought reform. So let's get into it, okay? So now look, here's what Christ set us free from. Here's Romans 8, 1-2. There is therefore no condemnation to them which are in Messiah, Yahushua, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. For the law of the Spirit of life in Messiah, Yahushua, hath made me free from the law of sin and death. So that's one of the things that the Messiah has set us free. I'm going to get into it tonight. So let's go on. So listen here. I want to get into it because I'm about to step into Ephesians 2 and 14 and Colossians 2 and 14 and 15 and 16. Notice here, my audience, I want you to see something. I have the word ordinances highlighted, and there's two different ordinances. Where you see these three right here, these are man-made ordinances, which they call dogma, the opinions of men. Remember, I was telling you about halakha, right? Now, when we get into Hebrews, these ordinances are God-given ordinances, okay? That's why I'm showing you this now. These three up here are man-made ordinances, and these two down here basically are God-given ordinances. And I'm going to show you tonight, okay? So now let's go. Let's go to Ephesians 2, 13-16, because this is one of the things that Christ came to get rid of, that he nailed to the cross. Okay, so listen. But now in Christ Jesus, you who were far off have been brought near by the blood of Christ, for he himself is our peace, whom has made us both one, and has broken down in his flesh the dividing wall of hostility, by abolishing the law of commandments expressed in ordinances, that he might create in himself one new man in place of the two, so making peace, and might reconcile us both to God in one body through the cross, thereby killing the hostility. Now, there is no law of hostility. If you listen, Deuteronomy 10 said that Most High loved the strangers, right? He wanted them to come and be a part of him. So there was never, basically, he had never had a problem. He never tried to exclude the Gentiles. If you Google up, and I do me a favor, guys, Google up the 18 edicts of Shammai, and you spell it Shamai, and it'll give you a little bit of detail of how he felt about the Gentiles and how he wanted to basically exclude them from the kingdom. And so Christ came to do away with that. And notice I have this word ordinances highlighted in red, and I'm going to show you why. Okay. Now, Colossians 2, 13-15. Notice this. And you being dead in your sins and the uncircumcision of your flesh have he quickened together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses, blotting out the handwritings of ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us. Because what the Pharisees brought was contrary to the law of God, and it made them contrary to the law of God because they followed that, right? Now listen, and took it out of the way, nailing it to the cross. Having spoiled the principalities and powers, he made a show of them openly, triumphing over them in it. Because why did he make a show of them? Remember, he healed on the Sabbath day, making them look stupid because they had rules that you couldn't pray for nobody on the Sabbath day. You understand what I'm saying? There was a lot of things he did that just he put them to shame openly. Okay. So now let me back out of this for 1 second. And I want to show you something. I'm going to go somewhere. I want you guys to come somewhere with me. And I want you to see something. Okay. Because I want you to see the difference between these words here. Hold on. I don't know why I can't get this up. I want you to see the difference between these words here. Okay. So let's go to. Okay. Y'all, you can still see. You still with me, Sam? Y'all can still see, or do I need to go back and share my screen? Because you know how I do sometimes once I exit out of the thing.
No, we can still see your screen, bro. You in Google?
Yeah, I'm in Google, and I want them to see something. Bible Hub. Okay. No, was that Bible? Okay. Because I want to take them somewhere, and I want them to see something, and that was Ephesians 2. Okay. Because I want them to see the difference of how these words are spelled and their difference, because these ordinances are different. Because a lot of people thinking that Christ put the law, nailed it to the cross, and that's not the case. Okay. And there's a difference between dogma. Okay. So now let's look. Interlinear. Okay. Okay. So here it is. It must be right here. 215, I believe, is where it's at. Okay. Okay, you see where this word is? Ordinances? And let me make it a little bigger for you can see it. You're going to find out that this is not God-given ordinances right here. You can see this, Sam, right here, this word? Dogmason? Can you see that, Sam?
Yeah, I can see it, bro.
Okay, so I want to show you this. This is not God-given. This is man-made. I'm going to show you that tonight, okay? So now let's go to Colossians. And you're going to see the same word. I think it's 2:14 in Colossians.
And what bro is doing is the contextual etymology of the word that's translated as ordinance. And so what he's doing is going through how Paul uses that word to illustrate and show that he's using it exclusively for man-made laws, halakha, mitzvah, ma'aseh, ha-Torah, which means the pertinent works of the law. This is what Paul is addressing, and he's about to illustrate this through the contextual and etymological use of that word.
Okay, I mean Colossians 2:14. You see that word again, dogmason? You see that, Sam?
Yep, I see it, bro. Strong's 1378.
Right, and this is right here. These are the words for ordinances in Colossians and Ephesians. Now watch this in Hebrews, okay? Because it's used twice in Hebrews, okay? So, and it's Hebrews 9:1. You're gonna see a different word for the ordinances, okay? Okay, so now, okay, now listen to this. See where it says regulations at? This is ordinances. This is a totally different word for the Hebrew word, right? Dikaya mata, regulations of worship, right? Okay, so that's 9:1, right? So hold on, let me see. Where's that thing I had? Let me pull it up right here. So, and then Hebrews 9:10. Okay, so you see that word right here, right? So this is different for ordinances, right? Totally different. So let's go to 9 and 10. This is what the word for godly ordinances, like having to deal with the law, Torah ordinances. Totally different. Two different words. Okay. So now, see these ordinances? See what I'm saying? Look at here. Different word. Okay. This is God given here. These are divine ordinances right here, compared to what you see, which is man-made. So now I'm going back to my PowerPoint. Can you see my PowerPoint, Sam?
Yeah, I can see it, bro.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're on there, you know. Okay, so now let's look at the difference. So let's go into the definitions, okay? Remember what I told you, dogma is different. So here's the definition for dogma. This is 1378, okay? It says, based on 1380, a law, civil, ceremonial, etc., right? Decree, ordinance. Dogma is translated in English, primarily denoting an opinion. You hear me now? Denoting an opinion or judgment, hence an opinion expressed with authority. The Pharisees' opinion expressed with authority, a doctrine, right? A teaching, a doctrine. Ordinance, decree, okay? This is man-made here, okay? This is, you see that word dogma, where we seen dogmasin, okay? We see this man-made, okay? So now let's go to the next slide, okay? Here's halakha, okay? Which we went over this earlier. Halakha, right? Which is law, rule, traditions. Tradition of, right? Halakha, by rule of thumb. So that's by people's, basically by rule of thumb, meaning the opinion or the acceptance of the populace, right? Properly as one should. Halakha, theoretically, in theory, it is basically decisions by a rabbinical authority or court. This is what Christ came to nail. This is what he nailed to the cross. Okay. This is what he came to get rid of. Okay. Now, let's look at dogma. It's an opinion, right? An opinion, a decree, an edict or ordinance, right? Now, listen to this. Here's the one that's God given. Dig yama. Dig yama, right? Equitable deed, a statute or decision, a judgment, justification, ordinances, righteousness, right? Now listen to this. The word has three distinct meanings and seems best described comprehensively as a concrete expression of righteousness. It is a declaration that a person or thing is righteous, and hence, broadly speaking, it represents the expression and effect of diaosis. It signifies an ordinance, judgment, right? Judgment, what God has, listen, what God has declared to be right, referring to his decree of reputation. Oh, of retribution. Okay, my bad. Righteousness of the law. Righteousness requirements enjoined by the law. So collectively, the precept of the law. Okay, all that is demands as right. Ordinances connected with the tabernacle ritual. See what I'm saying? So this is the godly meaning. Okay, let me read this back to you again, right? Let me start. An ordinance, judgment. Judgment. What God has declared to be right. Referring to his decree of retribution. Righteousness of the law. Righteousness requirements enjoined by the law. So 8 and 4, collectively the precept of the law, all that it demands as right. Okay. Ordinances connected with the tabernacle rituals. Okay. Listen, here is the word study definition of the word. It's to justify. Listen, the product of or result of being justified by God. The rights or claim which one has before God when he becomes his child by faith through Christ. In Revelations 19:8, the word is translated the righteousness of saints. And in Hebrews 9:1, listen, ordinances of divine service. Okay, listen, ordinances of divine service, which word actually means legal rights of the saints. A law, ordinance, precept. This is not the same that you see in Ephesians and in Colossians. I'm gonna yield. Sam, I'm gonna see if you wanted to say something before I go to the next slide.
Yeah, for those of you guys that are tuned in and may not be following along, what bro just did was show the difference between the two words. We have been telling you guys that Paul is mostly and largely dealing with the oral Torah traditions of the elders, in most cases in that book of Galatians. And so what bro is showing is that the ordinance that he is speaking about in the text, in the chapter that we're in Galatians, is dealing with man-made traditions and halakha. And so therefore, Paul is not dealing or speaking against this dikaioma. He's not dealing with that. Dikaioma is dealing with the ordinances that the Most High gave to Moshe. The other word that Paul uses and that he's using in Galatians is actually dealing with the oral tradition. So now we've shown you guys that through the history. We've shown you guys that through the context. Now bro is breaking down the etymologies of the words just to show you that there's a difference. Paul makes a distinction in the words that he chooses between the oral Torah traditions of men and those ordinances that was given to Moshe. And so that's what he's doing here. We've shown you guys the history, the biblical context. And so now what bro is doing is showing you guys how that these are actually two different words that Paul uses. And I'm not a proponent that Hebrews was written by Paul. I would go with Barnabas, not Barnabas, Apollos. There's some tradition that say Apollos wrote the book of Hebrews and all of that good stuff. I believe it was someone that had a connection with Paul. And so therefore, what he's showing you guys here is that they're two different words. They are two different words, proving that Paul is not dealing with the written Torah. He's dealing with those oral Torah traditions of men.
Yeah, that is correct. I'm going to go to the next slide. So this is to show you what Christ basically nailed to the cross, what he took care of, what he freed the people from. Okay. So that's one aspect. So let's go to the next slide. Because all of this is dealing with chapter 5, 1 through 4. Okay. Now listen to this. Here's the hard outline, right? This is about the word, right? That we just read. That which has been deemed right so as to have force of law, what has been established and ordained by law and ordinances, a judicial decision, sentence, listen to this, of God, either the favorable judgment by which he acquits man and declares them acceptable to him, unfavorably sentences of condemnation, a righteous act or deed. Okay. Now, let's get into it, because remember what Paul said, that if you're going to get circumcised, right, that you got to keep what? All the Torah. Here's where we're going to learn what Paul is talking about. You see this word, Kabbalat ol ha-mitzvah? This is basically, it means the yoke of the Torah. But this ain't talking about the Torah of the Most High. I want you to Google up this word, okay? Listen to what I'm telling you. Google this word up. This is what Paul is speaking against right here. This is what Paul is talking about. I'm going to show you tonight. You're going to see. Because when you get involved with this, you're indebted. You're indebted to the rabbinical commandments. Okay? So Google this word. That's why I'm leaving it up real quick. So let's move on. And we're going to learn about this. Listen to this. This is Yabamot. The Berita states a ramification of the dispute. Therefore, the court may immerse a convert who was already circumcised on Shabbat. This is the statement of Rabbi Yehud, since he holds that circumcision alone effect conversion, the immersion will not affect any further change in his status. And so it is permitted on Shabbat. And Rabbi Yoshi, the court may not immerse him, since he holds that both circumcision and immersion are necessary to effect a conversion. The immersion will affect a change in his status by making him what? Jewish. Basically making him an Israelite by their term. So the circumcision is basically it has nothing to do with Christ. This has something to do with Judaism. This is Judaizing right here. Therefore, it is prohibited to do so on Shabbat by rabbinic decree. So this is what they're trying to get them into: rabbinic decrees, rabbinic orders, because it appears similar to preparing a vessel for use. Okay. Now listen here. Here's another one, right? This is Yabamot. Rabbi Haya Bar Abba said that Rabbi Yohan said a man is never considered a convert, right, until he is both circumcised and immersed. The Gemara asks, isn't this obvious in all disputes between an individual stage and many stages that halakha is in accordance with the opinion of the many stages? It is therefore obvious that the halakha is in accordance with the rabbis. Remember, halakha is the opinion of the rabbis. It has really nothing to do. It has nothing to do with faith in Christ. None of this stuff. It has nothing to do with the Torah. Okay. So now we're finna get into that call about all ha-mitzvot. And this is where we're gonna get into it at. Listen to this. This is Burke Horok 30b in the Mishnah. This is what Paul is talking about when he says that if you're gonna get circumcised, you're in debt to the whole Torah. I tell you this is what he's talking about. Now listen, with regard to a convert who accepted upon himself, upon his conversion matters of Torah, all the mitzvot, even if he is suspect with regard to one matter alone, meaning if he's questionable, if he doesn't want to do one of the matters of his all alone, he is suspect with regards to the entire Torah. So they're saying that you're in doubt of the entire Torah. Now listen to this. If he is considered like a Jewish transgressor, what's that word? Meshumad, who habitually transgress the mitzvah. The Gemara explains that the practical difference resulting from the fact that he is considered like a Jewish transgressor is that if he betroths a woman, his betrothal is a valid betrothal and they are married. So he's saying you basically, if you do this, if you're involved in these things, it's like you're married, but you've transgressed. Although he is suspect with regard to the entire Torah, he does not return to his prior Gentile status. So what they're saying is this: you're no longer considered a Gentile. If you transgress one, they're going to handle you like you is basically a Jew. Your status has changed now. You got to do all these mitzvot, okay? All these commandments. This is what Paul writing about, okay? So listen. Here it is. Same thing, 30b. Now listen to this. The stage is taught in Barita in the case of one who comes to accept upon himself, listen, the commitment to observe the matters associated with the Havar status, except one matter. Listen to this. Except for one matter, which he does not wish to observe, he is not accepted. This is what Paul is talking about. If you're going to do, you're going to be in debt to the whole Torah. Okay? To the whole Torah. This is what Paul's talking about. Listen to this. This is what he said. Because this is talking about Gentiles. In the case of one who comes to accept upon himself the commitment to observe the matters associated with the Havar status, except for one matter. You can't even, not even one matter. You can't even have an issue with one matter, which he does not wish to observe. He is not accepted, and he is not trustworthy even with regard to those matters that he does wish to accept upon himself. Likewise, listen to this. In the case of a Gentile who comes to convert and takes upon himself to accept the words of Torah, except for one matter, he is not accepted as a convert. That's what Paul is talking about. Rabbi Yoshi's son, Rabbi Yehud, says, listen to this. Even if he refused to accept one detail of rabbinic law, see, this has something to do with rabbinic law, he is not accepted. It ain't got nothing to do with Torah, nothing to do with the instructions of Moses. I'm going to read this again. Okay? Listen, I'm starting right here. Gentile who comes to convert and takes upon himself to accept the words of Torah, except for one matter. What Paul said, he in debt to do the whole Torah. He is not accepted as a convert. Rabbi Yoshi, son of Rabbi Yehu, says, even if he refuses to accept one detail of rabbinic law, this is talking about rabbinic law, rabbinic Torah, he is not accepted. Now, let me back out of here. I want to take you somewhere with this word, okay? Because this means that word that I showed you, it means the yoke. It means the yoke of the Torah, okay? So now listen, and I might need to make my words a little bigger, okay? Okay. Acceptance of the mitzvah as required for conversion. In recent followings, the massive aliyah from the former Soviet Union, hold on, let me scan through this because there's something I really want to get to. So listen, the disagreement focuses on Holocaust. Listen, like I told you, when I tell you Holocaust, I told you always remember that word. Holocaust requirement of the Kabbalat HaMitzvot, acceptance of the Torah commandments. The conversion process requires that the prospective proselyte accept upon himself observance of the mitzvah. If he fails to do so, his conversion is invalid, and this lecture shall deal with the proselyte's obligation to accept the mitzvah, both ideally and after the fact. What I tell you, okay?
Okay, let me break in here real quick, bro. For those of you guys that are tuned in, may not be following, in the first century, there were two Torahs, two of them. For those of you guys that haven't watched it, bro went through this in part 1 and part 2. We discussed that in the first century, in order for us to understand the letter that Paul wrote to the Galatians, I know some of you guys may be thinking, well, where's Galatians at? We're getting into Galatians, but in order for us to understand what's going on in Galatians, we got to understand the historical context, what was going on at the time. And when we understand that and get an idea of what was going on, then the letter to the Galatians begins to be illuminated. We begin to get understanding. Once again, in the first century, there were two Torahs, and this is why we don't subscribe to the Talmud. We do not subscribe to the Talmud. We are not pushing the Talmud. I know some of the Pauline Christian folk in the urban apologetic community will levy that charge against us and say, Brother Sam, the defender of the way, and Brother Yehukanan is actually pushing Talmud. That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is showing you what Paul was dealing with in the first century. These folks, there were two parts according to them. I'm not saying that the oral Torah traditions is a part of the something that was given to Moshe on the mountain. I don't believe that, but they did. And it's very likely that Paul himself did as well as all of the other apostles. They would have been taught this from a child, that on the mountain, Moshe was given two sets of commandments. Moshe, as Moses, was for the Christian folk, was given two sets of commandments. He was given the written Torah, and then he was given oral traditions, that oral ordinances that tells how to carry out the written Torah only to a selected group of priests and judges and things of that nature, and that was passed down to the first century. And so this is the problem that Paul is dealing with. And as bro just showed you, it was awesome, and you guys need to write that down and go look it up. What these folks were saying is, if you don't accept our oral traditions of the elders that was passed down, we do not accept you as part of the Kahal, whom the world calls the church, the Kahal being the church. We do not accept you as part of the congregation. You can't come in here. You're not a part of this congregation. I don't care if you accepted Yeshua as your savior. You repenting, you're keeping the commandments, all of that good stuff. That doesn't matter. If you're not accepting these oral traditions of the elders, then you're not saved. It's just that simple. And this is what Paul was dealing with. This is what we're dealing with in Acts chapter number 15, Acts chapter number 21, the letter to the Galatians, the letter to the Romans, which we will most likely follow up. This is what Paul is dealing with. The Pauline Christian community twists this teaching to say, oh, see, Paul was talking about the written Torah. He was talking about that which the Most High wrote with his finger, which makes no logical sense, one. And then number two, when you get into the context, this is what bro is doing. So I want you guys to understand. I just wanted to make that clear. We are not pushing Talmud. We don't subscribe to the Talmud. We're just using it as a historical source to show the mindset and help us get into the mindset of what Paul and all of the rest of the apostles would have been dealing with in the first century. I'm done.
Oh, okay. So here is a New Testament, a Messianic website for Jews. It says My Jewish Learning, and this is about the word I showed you, the Kalabot Ol Mitzvah, and the word Ol in Hebrew means yoke. Okay, in the yoke of the Torah. Listen, acceptance of the yoke. Listen, acceptance of the yoke of the commandments. Kalabot Ol HaMitzvah, acceptance of the commandments, combines faith and actions with an intent to involve as practicing Jew. Okay, the yoke of the covenant. Okay, so I'm gonna read a little bit of this. Okay, the following is a look at the traditional practices regarding a potential convert acceptance of the commandments. Contemporary practices may differ depending on the community, denominations, and personal beliefs of individual rabbis. So see what it's saying, it has something to do with rabbis who are working with potential converts, accepted with permission from becoming a Jew. Okay. The prospective convert's commitment to practice Judaism. See, this has something to do with Judaism, right? Must be articulated at two stages in the conversion's protocol. In the initial statement of the intent to enter the Jewish covenant, prerequisite to the total process, and in the declaration recited as the climax of the conversion ceremony immediately prior to immersion in the ritual pool. Okay. Because the Jews constitute a covenant community rather than a faith community, the decision to convert is a decision not only to believe in the Jewish idea of God, but to act on that belief. When one enters into the covenant, the convert's personal Sinai, the mountain where the Jewish people accepted the covenant, one accepts the divine mandate requiring distinctive behavior. This is called acceptance of the yoke. Remember, listen, acceptance of the yoke of commandments. What does this entail as practical program? First, it is necessary the acknowledgement of the authority of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. Listen now, and the oral interpretation of that law by the stages of the Talmud. So it's not necessarily, they're not focused on really the words of the Torah of Moses. It's more about following the oral interpretations of the law by the stages of the Talmud and the codes of the Halakha. Remember what I told you, Halakha, remember that, Jewish law. These two components are called the written Torah and the oral Torah. Together, they comprise the body of Jewish law. And I'm going to stop reading there. I think I've made my point. I think I made that pretty clear right there. So, okay. So let's go on to the slide. Can you see the slide there that I'm on now, Sam?
Yeah, bro. Beck Horot 30B.
I can't hear you. Say what now?
Yeah, Beck Horot 30B.
Okay, yeah, you see it. Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure we on it. Okay, so there we go there. So now let's look. Remember what he said. He said they're using this works of law, right? Because this basically always goes back to even in 5, circumcision and the works of the law of the oral Torah to be justified. He says you've done Christ a disservice. Why? Because there was prophecy about somebody coming to justify, right? Because remember, they're trying to carry out their own version, like what Hebrews 9 talks about with the ritual washings and the sacrifices of bull and goats. They, like I said, they hijacked it, they enhanced it, they came up with their own way. Which, remember, we already discussed, this was the temporary Torah, because there was Most High came up with a way for them to be justified. So let's look at Isaiah 53 and 10 and 11. Yet it pleased Yahuwah to bruise him. He hath put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed. He shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of Yahuwah shall prosper in his hand. Listen to this. He shall see of the travail of his soul, and shall be satisfied by his knowledge. Shall my righteous servant, listen what he's going to do, justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. So now, this is got rid of schoolmaster. Schoolmaster was the ritual laws for justification, which we covered that. We talked about that. Christ, he knocked that out right there. We're justified by Christ now because what he did, the life he lived. We're good now. So that should have took care of everything through 1 through 4. So before I go on my next slide, you want to say anything, Sam?
Now you did a excellent job in showing and proving with sources. That's what we do, not just spit out of our own opinions. We go into the history. First, we start with the Bible itself, and then we go to the extra biblical sources which support the Bible. And so what bro just showed you was that in the first century, like I said earlier, and like we said in earlier parts of this series, in first century, the Yahudim, or the Jews of the first century, would have seen both the written and oral Torah as parts of one law. It was part of the law. So when you hear Paul saying not justified by the law and all these types of things, we have to place it in context and use the context to decipher, well, which part of the law is he speaking about? Because in the first century, there were two parts of the one law, two parts that made up the Hebrew law, the written and the oral. And that's important to know, and an important foundation in order to be able to properly exegete, which means to interpret the biblical text.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now let's go on to the next one. Galatians 5 through 10. For we through the Spirit wait for the hope of righteousness by faith. For if Yahusha, Messiah, neither circumcision availeth anything, nor uncircumcision, but faith which worketh by love. So we already know what faith is. Faith is the word of the Most High, and it's also receiving the Messiah, which we learned that in Deuteronomy 18, which is covered in the Torah. Ye did run well. Who did hinder you that you should not obey the truth? Which we already know is the sects of the Pharisees who did this. Okay, so he's asking the question. They already know who it was. This persuasion cometh not of him that calleth you. This ain't come from the Messiah. Listen to this. A little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. Bad doctrine, right? I have confidence in you through the Master that you will be none otherwise minded, but that he that troubleth you shall bear his judgment, whosoever he be. So he's saying whoever is basically putting this on you, I hope they bear their judgment, because they're turning you away from Christ and him crucified. Now, what he said, a little leaven leaven the whole lump. Who also said that? Who got leaven? Okay. Matthew 16. Let's look. Then Yahushua said unto them, take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. Now, this is in Matthew 16, and I took some verses out of there for within the context, because y'all know the story. They was talking about unwashed hands and eating the bread and all this other stuff, and they understand what Christ's saying. And he said, beware of the leaven, right, of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and they couldn't figure it out. But then guess what? Then they understood how that he bade them not beware of the leaven of the bread. He ain't talking about that, but of the doctrine of the who? The Pharisees and the Sadducees. Because Christ had a problem with their teachings. He said it was burdensome. What did he say? He said basically they don't go in the kingdom and they're keeping people away from the kingdom. Right? He said he make people twice the devil, especially Gentiles. Paul dealing with the same old thing. The leaven of the Pharisees. Okay. Okay. So now let's go to Galatians 5:11 through 16. And I, brethren, if I yet preach circumcision, why do I yet suffer persecution? Then is the offense of the cross ceased. See, Paul was circumcising. He circumcised, was it Timothy? But one of them, he didn't compel him to get circumcised, meaning he didn't pressure the dude to get circumcised. We don't know if that guy got circumcised or not. It just said he never compelled him. But Paul was a child of Abraham. So, you know what I'm saying? He taught about circumcision. He just didn't teach about the Pharisaic way of circumcision. That's why, listen to what he said. He said, and I, brethren, if I yet preach circumcision, why do I yet suffer persecution? Then is the offense of the cross ceased. So what he's saying is this, basically, if I just stick basically to circumcision, then they won't bother me if I don't talk about the cross, because they're more offended by the cross, okay? I would they were even cut off which trouble you. So I don't know, because some versions try to say that he's talking about the mutilating their own private parts in certain versions when it comes to that portion right there, okay? So for brethren, ye have been called unto liberty. Only use not liberty for an occasion to the flesh, but love serves one another. So what liberty is he talking about? He's talking about you have been served in liberty. Not the liberty is you won't die right away. You won't be stoned to death. You got a chance.
You still there, bro? Okay. Well, I think bro is having some technical issues there. But what just to recap, while he's getting his technical issues there together, the leaven of the Pharisees is a direct reference to their doctrine. And so bro just made that connection, an awesome connection in comparing the book to the book and using the Bible to interpret the Bible. We do get into the historical aspects of it so that we can get a better understanding, but a complete understanding of what's going on so that we can get in the mindset of the author. Because the only thing that matters is not my interpretation, is not Brother Yehukannan's interpretation, is not Christian apologist interpretation. It's what the author meant when they said it. That's the author's intended meaning for you Bible students out there, the aim of the text. And so that's what we're getting into. We lost your screen share, bro.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, bro.
Okay, I don't know what happened, man. I know I just heard you say there was some technical difficulty. What's the last part you heard?
You was at the leaven of the Pharisees, bro.
Okay. So I think I was going on and there was a part that you didn't hear. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, you was about to transition or something, and you just went out. Okay, it's back up. I'm getting ready to add it to the stream. There we go. Add it. You good now? All
right. So we covered that, right? We showed that Matthew 6 is talking about the leaven of the Pharisees, right? This is what Christ told about. So you did see this part, right?
No, bro. Yeah, we saw that. We got a couple questions out as well. At the end, we will try to address those questions. We want to get through this. We will address those questions if time permit. Also, I see you guys in the building. Donald Jones, I appreciate you. We certainly will try to get to your question. Brother John Williams in the building. Scott Garrett Headley also asks, is this a question and answer session? As stated at the end, we will try to open it up for question and answers. But if not, if it gets too late or what have you, then next week we will open the panel up for all questions. So write down your questions. And you can post them in the comment section as well. And we'll definitely try to get to your questions. But we got a couple questions on the floor, bro. It's on you.
Okay. Can you hear me out?
Yeah, I can hear you, bro.
So now let's look at Galatians 5:11 through 16. And I, brethren, if I yet preach circumcision, why do I yet suffer persecution? Then is the offense of the cross ceased. So this is what I'm saying. Paul, he never stopped teaching and preaching circumcision. He didn't deal with the circumcision that they were acquiring. Okay. He did get one of them, Timothy, he got circumcised, but he didn't compel Titus to get circumcised. We do not know if Titus ever got circumcised. He never compelled him to do that. Okay. He never compelled him. But listen what he's saying. He said, brother, if I yet preach circumcision, then why I suffer? Why they bothering me? They bothering him because he preaches the cross. Okay. So he said, listen what he said. He said, and I, brethren, if I yet preach circumcision, why do I yet suffer persecution? Then is the offense of the cross ceased. Okay. I would they were even cut off, which trouble you. Now, in some versions, they're saying that he's talking about self-mutilation of the private parts in certain versions. Okay. I don't know if that's the case, but he said, I wish they were cut off, which trouble you. For brethren, ye have been called unto liberty. Only use not liberty for an occasion to the flesh, but by love serve one another. And what that liberty is what he's talking about is you're not instantly stoned to death now, since if you do break Torah. Okay. You have a chance of repentance now. You can repent and confess and hold on and grab hold of Christ now. It's not like how back when you did commit adultery immediately, if you got caught and found out, you could be stoned to death. There were certain offenses that basically, capital punishment. And now you're not under that anymore. So now you're free. You understand, from the law of sin and death. And now you can repent. Now listen to this. For all the law is fulfilled in one word, even this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Because love has always been the fulfillment of the Torah. Loving the Most High and loving your neighbor as yourself has always been the way to fulfill the Torah. But if ye bite and devour one another, take heed that ye be not consumed one of another. This I say then, walk in the spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. Sam, you want to get in on this before I go to the next slide?
Actually, I wanted to mention Hatafat, Hatafat, Dam, Dam, Brit, Brit. For those of you guys that are out there, look that up. This is where converts who were already circumcised were being required to be recircumcised. They would take and pick a prick and bring blood from the male member of the male if you were not circumcised under their tradition. For instance, if you were a Essene and you wanted to convert to Pharisaic Judaism, then you had to be recircumcised because the Pharisees didn't accept the works of the law from the Essenes. If you were a Nazarene and if you were a Pharisee and you wanted to convert to the Essenes, same thing. They didn't accept that circumcision. That's why it says in Acts 15, after the manner of Moses, because they're saying, well, we got the real way that it's supposed to be done. And you guys didn't, you guys got circumcised under the Pharisees. I'll give you an example. In my 30 some years in Christendom, when I was pastoring a Christian church, if you came to me from a Baptist church, because I was in Apostolic Pentecostal Holiness, so if you came to me from a Baptist church saying that you were baptized in Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, then you was getting baptized over again in the name of Jesus. And so that's the same principle there. Nah, bro, you got circumcised under the Pharisees. You were circumcised under the Essenes or what have you, under the Sadducees. We don't accept that. So you need to be circumcised again. And so a lot of that, this is what's going on there. That term for you scholars out there is Hatafat, Dam, Brit, Hatafat, Dam, space Dam, space Brit. And you'll find it in the Talmud as well. It's Shabbat 135a. I didn't get an opportunity to put this into the lesson, but it will go into it and show you in the first century what was going on and how these folks were being made to be circumcised several times. And this is why Paul says I believe this is verse number 11 here, and I, brethren, if I yet preach circumcision. He's preaching circumcision. Why do I suffer persecution? Then is the offense of the cross ceased. So Paul is writing to these Gentile Galatians here, and he's talking about he's preaching circumcision. Well, wait a minute here. I thought Titus and all of these people weren't made to be circumcised and all of this kind of stuff. Like I said, Hadaphat, Dam, Brit, which means, and bro just went through it, if you are not circumcised or you're not keeping the oral Torah according to the rabbis, they don't accept you. Your conversion is null and void. You are not accepted. And if you already converted, you looked at as a lawless Hebrew because you converted, but you're not keeping those commandments. And so that's very important. This is a very important text here that a lot of folk in Christendom are not aware of, one, and two, those that may be aware of it don't speak about. Paul preached circumcision. That's what he says here. And I, brethren, if I yet preach circumcision, why do I suffer persecution? So that's all I wanted to bring out there, bro.
Okay. I want to focus on this last one. I said, this I say then, walk in the spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. So now we're finna get into the spirit and the lust of the flesh. Now, keep in mind when I told you last week about being under the law, it can mean subject to Torah, or it can mean as a violator of Torah. Okay, so let's check it out. Galatians 5:17-21. For the flesh lusts against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh, and these are contrary the one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things that ye would. But if you be led of the Spirit, you are not under the law. Remember that. If you be led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. Meaning you're not a law violator. Meaning you're not under the law of sin and death, or under the curse. You understand what I'm saying? Under the consequences of violating the Torah. Okay. So now listen to this. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lavishness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, mutilation, wrath, strife, sedition, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, reveling, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in times past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom. So these things that he mentioned, and this is what is being under the law. These things have to do with law violation. Okay. And if you do these things, then you're subject to the death penalty, but you don't get it immediately. You understand what I'm saying? You're subject to the curse of Torah for going contrary towards the word of the Most High when you indulge in these things. But thank goodness for grace that he has a son who gave us a chance to abandon these acts and return and repent and turn to the Son. Okay. Now listen to this. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. There's no law against this thing. You understand? There's no curse or no payback in Torah for these acts being in this. Now listen, this is me now. This is not Sam. I'm saying this. I believe Paul got this from the Essenes, because there is a writing in the Dead Sea Scrolls that says these similar things that was written way before Paul. So I'm saying this. So I don't want nobody to try to put this on Sam. Sam probably agrees different, might look at it different than me. So Sister Shanti and this and that. But I believe that Paul got this from the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I'm going to show you why I believe that. Okay. So let's look. The Dead Sea Scrolls. Here we go. Now listen to this. Upon the earth, the operations are these: One enlightens a man's mind, making straight before him the paths of true righteousness and causing his heart to fear the laws of God. Listen to this. This spirit engenders humility, patience, abundant compassion, perpetual goodness, insight, understanding, and powerful wisdom, resonating to each of God's deeds, sustained by his constant faithfulness. It engenders a spirit knowledgeable in every plan of action, zealous for the laws of righteousness, holy in its thoughts, and steadfast in the purpose. Okay, let's go to the next one. Spirit encourages plenteousness, compassion upon all who hold fast to truth, and glorious purity combined with the visceral hatred of impurity in its every guise. It results in humble deportment allied with a general discernment, concealing the truth that is the mystery of knowledge. To these ends in the earthly counsel of the Spirit to those who nature yearns for truth. And this is on page 121 of the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's in the chapter of the Jewish Sectarian Association. So like I said, I believe that Paul got that statement from there. But that's me. I don't know. Sam might feel or look at it different. I'm going to yield and see if Sam want to say anything before I go into my next slide.
Nope, bro. I agree with you. I agree with you. Paul being a Pharisee, he would have been familiar with these teachings, and he would have been bringing it out and using, like we see with Hamashiach, the Christ himself, John the Apostle, and also Paul. They use their knowledge of these teachings and brought them out in their teachings as well.
Okay. All right, so this is the next slide. This is Galatians 5:24-26. And they that are Messiahs have crucified the flesh with the affections and lust. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not be desirous of vain glory, or desirous of vain glory, provoking one another, envying one another. Okay. Now listen, Galatians 6:1-2. Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. Listen to this. Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Messiah. And I want you to pay attention to this word burdens, because there's two words in this chapter that says burdens, but they have two different meanings. Okay. Now he said, to this is fulfill the law of Messiah. So let's go to where Messiah said this at, because he said something similar to this. Because we're always hearing about the law of Christ, the law of Christ. What is this law of Christ? Paul saying it's basically to bear each other's burdens, love one another. So let's go. Let's see. John 13:34. A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another as I loved you, that ye also love one another. But guess what? This is not a new commandment. Christ is making this commandment a refresh, a renew. This ain't new. This is not new. When Christ gave this commandment, he said, I gave you a new commandment. You might as well say a renewed commandment, or I'm going to make the commandment fresh again. Because in Hebrew, renewed sometimes can mean make fresh, make anew, make afresh. Okay. A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. Now let's go here. Leviticus 19:18. Thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am Yahuwah. Wow. Sounds similar to what Christ said in John. Okay. So this ain't new. It's the law of Christ right here, right? Leviticus 19:34. But the stranger that dwelleth with you shall be unto you as one born among you, and thou shalt love him as thyself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. So that does not sound like it's something new. It seems like he made this thing afresh. So let's look at this word burden, barrows, right? Through the notion of going down, right? A weight. Only fig a loud abundance, authority, a burden, burdensome. Okay. The word denotes a weight, anything pressing on one's physically, or that makes a demand on one's resources, whether material, okay, to the burdensome, or spiritual. right? Which is Galatians 6:2. Okay. So they're saying basically they believe this is a spiritual burden. That's what we should bear, each other's spiritual burdens, right? Listening and hearing one another, helping one another to overtake whatever is bothering us, right? Religious acts in Acts 15:28. In one place, it metaphorically describes the future state of believers as an eternal weight of glory. Okay, so now this is the concordance definition. Let's look at the New Word Testament study. Barrels, burden, weight and reforce to its pressure, burden, load, where the burden of the day means the heavy labor of the day, used in Acts 15:28, Revelations 2:24, to designate precept which are burdensome to observe, to indicate sinful conduct and its consequences resulting in trouble and sorrow. Okay, in the pecuniary sense. Okay, so before I'm gonna go ahead and let Sam see if he wanted to get in on that before I go in to the next slide.
No, I'm good, bro. I'll give a couple shout outs. I just see one extra is Deshaun Jeffries in the building. He got a couple questions and responses. Maybe at the end of the program, we will
we should have time. We almost done.
Address the questions that you have, bro. Appreciate you tuning in again. Brother Deshaun Jeffries is the one that we had on the platform last week. He has a difference of opinions, and we certainly want to address those. If we do not get to your questions tonight, we will have an open panel. The Most High willing, inshallah, we will have an open panel on next week where it'll just be a strictly open panel where we can discuss and have different folk call in and give your opinions, your thoughts, and all that kind of stuff there. So if you have questions, just hold them for the end. Or you can save them for next week, but we'll certainly try to get to you guys before we close this session out this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Galatians 6:3-5. For if a man think himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceiveth himself. But let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoicing in himself alone and not in another. So this is in context to basically bearing one another. So he's saying that is the work right there, right? Because he's saying, listen, if you think of yourself to be this righteous person that follow Christ, right? But you are not looking after your brother, you're not, taking care of him or making sure that he is or whoever is in the faith, then you're just, you're full of crap. So that's the work. Us to love one another and look out for one another. Now listen to this though. He said, but let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoicing in himself alone and not in another. But listen, for every man shall bear his own burden. Okay. Now this is a different definition. Remember, we seen burden up top where it said to bear each other's burden, right? But this is a different type of burden here. Okay. So let's look. Fortion, okay? Fortion, an invoice as part of a freight to task or service burden, right? Fortion literally is something carried and is used metaphorically, except in Acts 27:10 of the landing of a ship. Of that which through light is involved in discipleship of Christ. Of tasks imposed by the scribes, Pharisees, lawyers, of that which will be the result at the judgment seat of Christ of each believer's work. Refers to weight, agkos, to bulk. Either may be oppressive, barrows, is a load in so far as it is heavy. Fortion, a burden in so far as it is borne. Hence, fortion may be either heavy or light. Okay. Here is the New Word Study of fortion. Okay. A burden, a load, a diminutive in form, but not in sense. The goods are merchandise carried by a ship, freight, baggage. used in the New Testament only figuratively as the burden of Christ's commandments. The burden of ceremony observances rigorously exacted and increased by human traditions, Matthew 23:4, right? That's what it's saying. By human traditions, notice that though. And Luke 11:46, the burden of one's own responsibilities and failures. And that's what it's saying in Galatians 6:5. You bear the burdens of your own responsibilities and your failures. But in the other burdens, he's saying basically, if you can help somebody, if it doesn't cost you to fall, then you bear that burden, help them bear that burden, help them in any way you can. Do you want to say something before going to the next slide, my brother? Sam. Hello?
Nah, you good, bro. I was trying to respond to
okay. I just want to make sure. Okay, so Galatians 6-10, let's see. Let him that is taught in the word communicate. And I want you to pay attention to that word communicate, because a lot of people in the church use this for money getting, but they don't understand what it's saying. This is not tithe here, but they use this in the wrong way. So let him that is taught in the word communicate unto him that teacheth in all good things. Be not deceived, Elohim is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. So what it's saying is, whatever you have in goods, basically, you share your goods with people, communicating, whether it be money, food, whatever, you share that, right? And he said, don't be deceived, be not deceived. God is not mocked. So whatever, so you sow it, you shall reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the spirit shall of the spirit reap life everlasting. And let us not be weary in well doing. So this is talking about good doings, well doings, right? For in due season we shall reap if we faint not. And as you can see, basically, from when we start off at 6 with the burdens, this is what it's talking about: doing good, doing good works, right? As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them who are the household of faith. So you should do good to all men, but what you should do, basically, if among your brethren in the faith, you definitely need to do good towards them. Okay. Now this word corneo, right? The word communicate, right? It's associated a partaker with that of things, to communicate, participate, and be a partaker of, right? As it is also with Jen in Hebrews 2:14 with a dat, I don't know, these abbreviations of persons, to communicate, distribute, impart, right? So that is the new word study for it. Let's see what the concordance have to say. Kania, to share with others, okay? Communicate, distribute. It is used in two senses: to have a share in, right? To give a share to, go share with, distributing, communicate. Did communicate it, also translated to be partaker of, right? In 1 Timothy, Hebrews 2:14, first part are partakers of. 1 Peter 4:13, and partake of. And the passive voice in Romans 15 have been made partakers of. And when you read in some versions, because I don't know why, it said give those who teach a double portion. So that means basically like this: if I'm in a congregation, if I have something, I give the member $5, right? Free will giving. But let's just say Sam is my pastor. He's been teaching me. Even though I gave the congregation $5, a member, I should at least give Sam $10, right? Because it said give a double. Those who teach give double, right? So this is just talking about communicating with people, giving your goods. This ain't talking about tithes, but it's just saying, like, basically those who ministering basically help with whatever goods you have and helping them. Okay. So Galatians 6:11-14. You see how large a letter I have written unto you with my own hand. As many as desire to make a fair show in the flesh, they constrain you to be circumcised, only lest they should suffer persecution for the cross of Messiah. So this is what he's saying here. They only want to get you circumcised for they can brag about you, right? And they only want to get you circumcised because they don't want to preach the cross. Listen to what he said. Listen, as many as desire to make a fair show in the flesh, right? In your circumcision, your penis getting circumcised, they constrain you to be circumcised, only lest they should suffer persecution for the cross of Messiah. So they don't want to suffer the cross of the Messiah. So they don't want to preach that, right? They want to get you circumcised because they still trying to hold on to what? Be cool with the Pharisees. Somewhat what Peter tried to do at the table, right? Now listen to this. For neither they themselves who are circumcised keep the law, but desire to have you circumcised, that they may glory in your flesh. But Elohim forbid that I should glory, save in the cross of our Master Yahushua Messiah, by whom the world is crucified unto me, and I unto you. Okay, so they don't keep the Torah. So my thing is this: is he saying they don't keep the Torah of the tradition of the fathers, or is he saying that they don't keep the Torah of Moses? Okay, so let's go to let's go to Christ, right? So Christ says in John 7:16-19, listen to this. Yahushua answered them and said, my doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me. If any man will do his will, he shall know of the doctrine, right? So Christ didn't come with no strange doctrine. They didn't do the will of the Father. That's why they didn't know what Christ's doctrine was, because they was away from Torah, right? And I'll show you why they was, and I'll prove it to you tonight. Whether it be of Elohim or whether I speak of myself, he that speaketh of himself seeketh his own glory. But he that seeketh his glory that sent him, the same is true, and no unrighteousness is in him. Listen to this. Did not Moses give you the law? And yet none of you keep the law. Why go ye about to kill me? They didn't keep Torah back then. There's more into their tradition of the fathers. Okay. So now let's look. Check this out. This is Yabumot. Rabbi Hillel Bar said that a man is never considered a convert until he's circumcised. So that's all they was worried about. And we kind of read this earlier tonight. They're trying to make converts. It got nothing to do about coming into Christ. Okay. I'll skip that. We went there. Now this is Sukkot 20a. The grammar notes, and listen, Rashi Lakish follows his line of reasoning stated elsewhere. Listen, Rish Lakish said, I am the atonement for Rabbi Hayah and his sons, as initially when some of the Torah laws were forgotten from the Jewish people. Okay, listen, they had forgotten the law. This ain't the first time that they turned away from Torah. Okay, it said when some of the Torah laws were forgotten from the Jewish people in the land of Israel, that's what Eretz Yisrael means. Ezra ascended from Babylon and reestablished the forgotten laws. So during Ezra time, they were going by their own traditions, right, about how they thought things would be done. But of course, we read where in Ezra where he found the book of the law and they had to make some corrections, right? So listen to this. Parts of the Torah were again forgotten in the land of Israel. And Hillel the Babylonian ascended and reestablished the forgotten sections. So it was Hillel who reestablished Torah instructions again, because it was forgotten, right? When parts of the Torah were again forgotten in the land of Israel, Rabbi Hayah and his sons ascended and reestablished the forgotten sections, this expressions of, right? Now I want you to notice something. Hillel restored the Torah back. But remember, Hillel was way older than Shammai, because remember, there was two schools of thoughts. Okay, Shammai was more into his own ways. So when Hillel died and Shammai took over, they got back into oral Torah again. Okay, so let's see how this happened. This is Bidzah 20a. Now listen to this, because this is how Shammai took control, and this is where these holocaust and these oral traditions like really came in. And this is when Christ really had to deal with it heavy. So check this out. On that day when the incident became known, suggesting that even Hillel had accepted Shammai's view. The reason why he accepted it, he had no choice, because he was outnumbered. Now listen to this. Bet Shammai, which means the house of Shammai, gained the upper hand over Bet Hillel, over the house of Hillel. And they sought to establish the holocaust and disregards in accordance with their own opinions. So this is what happened. The house of Shimei, they established their own halakha in regards in accordance with their own opinions. Remember, what did I read to you? The word dogma, opinions. This is man-made opinions. Now listen, But a certain elder of the disciples of Shimi, the elder was there, and Bava ben Buta was his name, who knew that the halakha is in accordance with the opinion of Bet Hillel in this matter, and he sent for. Okay, so this Shemael got the upper hand. This is where all these halakha, all these oral traditions came into play during the time of Christ and even while Paul was living. Okay, and so Galatians 6:15-18. For in Messiah Yahusha neither circumcision availeth anything nor uncircumcision but a new creature. And I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna say in this part, I don't really think he's talking about physical circumcision per se. I think he's more talking about Jew and Gentile here, because sometimes circumcision could mean a Jew and uncircumcised can mean a Gentile. But he said, for in Messiah Yahusha neither circumcision availeth anything nor uncircumcision but a new creature. Okay. And as many as walk according to this rule, peace be on them and mercy and upon the Israel of Elohim, right? The Israel of God is what you would say. Why is he saying this? The Israel of God. You don't never see this nowhere. Because remember, they was trying to tell them you're part of Israel by circumcision. This is why Paul is saying upon them Israel of God, the true Israel of God. He's letting them know. For henceforth, let no man trouble me, for I bear in my body the marks of the Master Yahusha. Brethren, the grace of our Master Yahusha Messiah be with your spirit. Amen. Okay, so I think that's it. And before I go on to my conclusion, Sam, you want to say anything? Because this was the end. I'm finna use the restroom real quick. You want to say something?
Go ahead, bro. Yeah, I give a John Williams is in the building as well. Shout out to
when I get back, I'm gonna do my conclusion because I want to show you that thing. Remember that stuff I was telling you about with the Elijahs and all that. So I'll be right back. Give me about 5 minutes.
Right. Okay. A couple questions here. I'll go over those while we're waiting on bro to come back from his bathroom break there. We had one question in regards to before brother Deshaun Jeffries, it was another question. Let me find it. Okay, so in 5 and 7, Galatians 5 and 7, is Paul saying, let me put this on the screen. Okay. So in Darnell Jones, so in 5 and 7, Galatians 5 and 7, I believe that is Paul saying that Yah's law of circumcision doesn't matter, only faith by love? Please clarify. That would be a no. Actually in Galatians, I'm sorry, is it Galatians? No, it's Corinthians. Is it 2 Corinthians 7 and 19, I want to say, is where Paul says circumcision is nothing, neither uncircumcision, and people take that out of context. What he's saying is if you're circumcised and you're not keeping the commandments, then your circumcision becomes uncircumcision. Being circumcised is not going to do anything for you if you're not obeying the divine instructions and teachings that was given to Moshe, which we call Torah and Christians call the law. So he absolutely was not saying that there. We just went through that. I think it was 6 and 14. I think it was where he says, if I'm yet teaching circumcision, why am I being persecuted? So he's actually saying, I'm teaching circumcision. What are you guys talking about? But as I mentioned earlier, there's a recircumcision process that these folks were being put through. They were being made to be circumcised twice. Now think about this. There were these folks were God-fearers. The majority of them were God-fearers. Paul really, as was his tradition, would go into the synagogues first. Even some of the scholars say that Paul was actually targeting God-fearers. In other words, Gentiles who were already familiar with the synagogues. And if you look up that word God-fearer, do a Google search, take you to Wikipedia, and it's going to give you some other sources. So don't just take Wikipedia's word for it. Go check out the sources that they name. And it tells you that in there that the God-fearers were keeping the law.
Yeah, I think we touched on that in chapter 1. Either chapter 1 or chapter 2. I think we did touch on that. We even went through and showed the word, I believe.
Right. So the God-fearers was actually keeping the law. That's why they were allowed to stay around the Yahudim, the Jews. They were in the temple. And this why Acts chapter number 15, James said, after he gave the commandments, which Christians to this day, Pauline Christians, we do have some way walkers that still call themselves Christians. So when you hear me say Christians, I'm referring to the Pauline Christians. And so not the Hebrews that are way walkers keeping Torah that still wants to call themselves Christians. I don't have a problem with, well, actually I do. I don't call myself Christian, but I don't have a problem with folk if that's what they want to call themselves, as long as we agree that we have to keep the divine teachings that was given to Moshe. But these folks, if you look at, I believe it's going to be verse 20 where he says, 19, wherefore my sentence is that we trouble not them which from among the Goyim are turned to the Elohim, but that we write unto them that they abstain. I'm going off the top of my head, so that would be 21, but that we write unto them. So I think it's verse number 21 where he says, because Moses is being preached in the synagogues every Sabbath day from time immemorial.
Correct.
Right? So these folks are under the teachings of Moshe. The divine teachings that was given to Moshe is what they're being taught in the synagogue. So they would have been familiar with that in itself. But bro is back, so I'm going to let him go ahead and give his conclusion, and then I guess we'll address some of these other questions there.
Okay, so this is my thing. I'm going to touch on the second coming of the Messiah, which is written in prophecy. Now, when you're dealing with Malachi chapter 3, that is talking about the first coming of the Messiah, and it's talking about Elijah preparing the way. Now, in chapter 4, this is dealing with the second coming of the Messiah. Now, I believe that there's 3 Elijahs, and I'm going to show you what I'm saying. There's the first, the prophet Elijah. The second Elijah was John the Baptist. And there's another Elijah that is supposed to come. Well, what are you talking about, Yehukanan? I'm going to show you. So, and we're going to see what Christ requires at the second coming. So here's Malachi chapter 4, okay? So let's go into this. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven. This is a day of judgment. And all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith Yahuwah of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. So this is a total annihilation of the wicked. No wicked would be left, right? This is not even going to leave a stubble of them, right? But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings. And this S-U-N is talking about our Messiah. He's being compared to the sun as far as the healing, the warmth healing that comes, right? The Son of Righteousness arises with healing in his wings, and ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. So you'll grow up safely now, you know, and ye shall tread down the wicked, right? For they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet in the day that I shall do this, saith the Yahuwah of hosts. So you're going to be, listen, the wicked is going to be under you. This is second coming. Listen to this. Remember ye the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Israel with the statutes and the judgments. I'm going to repeat this. This is the second coming of our Messiah, when he come with healing in his wings. Listen to this. Remember ye the law of Moses, my servant, which I command you and unto him in Horeb for all Israel with the statutes and judgments. Remember ye the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Israel with the statutes and judgments. Now listen to this, because here's where we're going to get into these Elijahs, and I'm going to make this clear for you. Listen to this. Matthew 7, and this is what I'm going to show you. This is why when we see on the day of judgment with Christ, he's going to say, depart from me, I never knew you. Matthew 7 and 20 and 23, for wherefore by the fruits ye shall know them. Not every one that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to him in that day, Lord, Lord, Have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. So let's look at this word iniquity, which everybody knows is the word anomos, right? And where is, I thought I had the definition. Okay, here it is. It's in the wrong spot. So listen, anomia, right? Illegality, a violation of law, wickedness, iniquity, unrighteousness, transgression, the law, transgression of the law, transgression of the law, right? Not to one living without law, but to one who acts contrary to law. Where there is no law given, there can be harmata, right? But not anomia, in error against adopted law. It is usually rendering as iniquity, which literally means unrighteousness, and it is used of iniquity in general. And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you, depart from me, ye that work iniquity. In the plural of acts of manifestation of lawlessness, saying, blessed are they whose iniquities are forgiven and whose sins are covered. Synonyms and all this other stuff. So that's one definition, right? So let's go to the word study. It says anomia is lawlessness. In most cases in the New Testament, it means not the absence of the law, but the violation of law. Transgression of lawlessness in the New Testament, it places stress not in a subjective law that we ourselves create for our convenience, but chiefly in a divinely instituted law. Listen to this, but chiefly in a divinely instituted law. Okay? That's what it's talking about, a divinely instituted law. Okay? Now, okay, I thought I had the biblical outline for that, but I didn't. So let me go back, and I want to show you something, because I remember I started talking about these Elijahs, right? And so let's get into it. Okay? So listen, behold, right? Because we already got put to the point where he said, remember the law of Moses. Somebody's going to come, another person coming to reinstitute this. This is Elijah, okay? So listen to this. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of Yahuwah, okay? And he shall turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. So listen, I'm glad to show you that the second Elijah, he did one half of this prophecy. The other half is the other Elijah, and they're coming with the spirit of Elijah. You understand what I'm saying? Because we know Elijah was a person who preached repentance. Same thing that John the Baptist did. John the Baptist had the spirit of Elijah, and he preached repentance. He was the second Elijah. Okay? So listen to this. He shall turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to the fathers. Okay? And I'm going to show you who the fathers is, because the fathers is the heavenly Father, and the fathers is the Messiah. We call Yahushua or Jesus. And I'm going to show you how Jesus is as one of the fathers as well, because this is plural. So I'm going to show you. Hold on, let's go in. So listen to this, right? First, this is Malachi 4:6 I want to deal with. He shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse, right? Now, I'm going to show you where John the Baptist did the first part. He turned the hearts of the fathers to the children. That's what he was preparing the way, because it was the Heavenly Father who wanted to, if we read, it said he was reconciling the world, right? He was in Christ reconciling the world back to himself. So this was Christ. This was the Father. This was the Father and the Christ pursuing the people, because they had a heart for the people. They were getting the people to come back to them. They were pursuing the people, right? So listen to this. Luke 1:17. It says, and he shall go before him in the spirit and power of Elijah. This is talking about John the Baptist. Now listen, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to wisdom, and of the just, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. Okay? So in this portion, he was making what? Preparing the hearts of the fathers for the children. So he's getting the people ready, because Christ and the Father was pursuing mankind and bringing them back to him. Okay. Now look, Isaiah 9:6. So we're going to find out how Christ is these things. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty El, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. So we're going to see how Christ is the Everlasting Father. Okay. So listen, Isaiah 8:18. Listen to this. Behold, I and the children whom Yahuwah hath given me. This is how Christ is the Father by adoption, because who the Father Yahuwah gave him children. Behold, I and the children who Yahuwah hath given me are for signs and for wonders in Israel from Yahuwah of hosts, which dwelleth in Mount Zion. How is Christ the Father? Because Yahuwah hath given him children, right? For signs and wonders. Now let's go to Hebrews 2:11, right? For both he that sanctifieth and they who are sanctified are all of one, for which cause he is not ashamed to call them brethren, saying, I will declare thy name unto my brethren. In the midst of the church will I sing praises unto thee. And again, listen, I will put my trust in him. And again, behold, I and the children which Elohim hath given me. So that's what I'm showing you. This is the Father's. Okay. Now look what he had to say about John the Baptist. This is Matthew 10-12. And his disciples asked him, saying, why then say the scribes that Elijah must first come? And Yahusha answered and said unto them, Elijah truly shall first come and restore all things. Now, let me ask you a question. When John the Baptist was here, did he restore all things? Okay. But I say unto you that Elijah is come already, right? John the Baptist came already, and they knew him not, but have done unto him whatsoever they listed. Likewise shall also the Son of Man suffer of them. So there's another Elijah. He already came. John the Baptist came, but they didn't know that he is coming in the spirit of Elijah. But there's another Elijah that's coming, that's going to restore all things. When this Elijah hits, he's going to restore the hearts of the children. The children are going to be seeking after God. He's going to start, whoever this Elijah is, whether it's really the physical Elijah or the person coming in the spirit of Elijah, he's going to set off a repentance and a revival that's going to cause people's hearts to really chase and seek after the Father, seek after the Heavenly Father and our Messiah. Now, let's go to Revelations 11:3-7. And I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,263 days, clothed in sackcloth. These are two olive trees, and the two candlesticks standing before the Elohim of the earth. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth, and devoureth their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. These have the power to shut heaven, that it is rains not in the days of their prophecy. And that's what Elijah had the power to do. Remember, when we see that, that's what Elijah did. And have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. And that's what Moses had did, right? And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them, and shall overcome them and kill them. So my whole point is that this, in the second coming of Christ, right? We see it says to remember the law, the Torah, the instructions of Moses, my servant. And that is the end. I'm done. We are finished. I'm finished with my conclusion. So we're ready. If people want to, questions or whatever, man, I'm ready.
Okay, cool. If you guys want to, someone, if you want to come on, let me see if I can put this link in there. You guys can come on and answer your questions for the next 10, 15 minutes or so, I guess. I'm getting ready to put the link in the Control V because my thing is not working. There we go. All right. So the link is in the chat there. If you guys want to come on and ask your question or have a brief dialogue, the link is in the chat. I do know Donnell Jones. I was starting to answer his question earlier, and he says, "But but faith by love part." Okay, so I'm guessing that would be Galatians 5:7. Let's pull that up real quick, and let's see if that's. Let's see what we get there. Let me Blue Letter Bible. But you guys, the link is in. I sent it in the chat thing. So if you guys want to come on, you're welcome to come on and have a dialogue for a brief moment of time. It's already almost 1 o'clock here. So if you guys want to come on, you're welcome to come on and have a dialogue. Just click on the link there. The link is in the chat thingy, and we'll try to answer a couple of these questions in the meantime. Galatians 5:7. You got that up, bro? Galatians 5:7, because my computer is taking forever.
Okay, hold on. Let me see. Galatians.
Okay, here we go. Galatians.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Nah, actually, give me 1 second here. Let's see. Galatians 5:7. Let's see what that says there, because we had a question. The question on the table is, does Galatians 5:7 is in Galatians 5:7? Is Paul saying that circumcision doesn't mean anything, just faith? Let me say something about that faith real quick. Faith is the Greek word pistis. We got some. Deshaun. He says device is not connected. Okay, we got brother Deshaun on here again. Okay, so he the question was that they were asking in regards to faith. What was in regards to faith? Faith is the Greek word pistis. It doesn't mean simply believing. If you do an etymology of that word and the way that the Greeks use that word, it means assurance based on evidence. The translators of the Greek Septuagint actually translated used pistis to translate the word and concept of emunah, which means to be steady and consistent in the way. So if we're going to be steady and consistent in the way, as I was mentioning to Deshaun Jeffries there, that the Torah requires that Gentiles that sojourn amongst Israel keep the law, for there is one law. What is that? Shemoth, chapter number 12, Exodus chapter number 12. There is one law, but one law to be given to the Yahudim, which are the Jews, and to the Goyim, or the Gentiles or strangers that dwell among you. And so, he said, thank you. So no, he's not actually, talking about, saying that faith, cancels out the requirement of circumcision. He's certainly not saying that. We just read tonight where he says he was teaching circumcision. Also, the council at Acts, at 48 AD. The council matter of fact, I'm sorry, the council was 58 AD, which we find in Acts chapter number 21. James the Just pulled Paul up about his doctrine and said, are you teaching folk not to be, James was mostly concerned in particular with the Yahudim. And he says, are you teaching the Jews that are among the Gentiles that to forsake Moshe, to not circumcise their children, nor to keep the customs, these oral traditions? Is that what you teaching, Paul? Is that what you're doing? Paul denied teaching that. So we have a fundamental issue here. We have a fundamental issue. Is there two doctrines there? Is there one doctrine to the Yahudim, one law to the Yahudim, and another one to the Gentiles? I think not. There's one law to both. And that's how we have to actually take that. We got Deshaun on here, bro. He's on here. So you can go ahead.
I'm ready for whatever. I got my notepad and stuff. Just for any questions. What's up, Deshaun?
What's good with you, bro?
Oh man, I'm just chilling, brother.
I didn't really have a whole lot to say in regard, because I want to keep it on topic with what was taught today. I don't really want to jump all over the place or readdress what was talked about in the last video or anything like that. But I had a couple questions in regard to, so like you would say in the Galatian letter, right, that when talking about circumcision and uncircumcision, up until chapter 6 has been regarded as physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is there any particular textual reason that you think that chapter 6 is not talking about physical circumcision?
Well, not necessarily the whole chapter of 6, just that portion, because he said new creature. So you understand what I'm saying? Like circumcision can actually mean Jew, uncircumcised can just mean Gentile. So like I was saying, people might not agree with me there, but I believe he's probably just talking about Jew and Gentile. That basically it is no matter about Jew and Gentile. It's just about being one new creature in Christ.
I guess, well, so like, I guess I need to ask a couple clarifying questions. Do you believe that when Paul references circumcised and uncircumcised, usually back to back, is he distinguishing between those who have the law, aka Jews, and those who don't have the law, aka Gentiles? Is that true?
Yeah, it can be true. Far as it all depends on context. Like I
Yeah.
said, don't the only reason I'm saying I believe there is not talking about the physical act of circumcision, is because of what comes next when he say new creature.
So, and this is where what about the actual verse that Danelle Jones, I think that's how you say his name, he just asked about? He says, "For in Christ Jesus, neither circumcision nor uncircumcision counts for anything." And what, but faith working through love. What, in what sense does he mean circumcision and uncircumcision there?
Let's see the context.
That was
Yeah, I know. It says, "For we through the Spirit wait for the hope of righteousness by faith. For in Jesus Christ neither circumcision availeth anything, nor uncircumcision, but faith which worketh by love. Ye do well. Who hindered you that you should obey the truth?" I mean, you can look at it in both ways. You can look at it as a physical circumcision, or you can look at it as Jew and Gentile. Because when we go to Romans,
the
Paul
reason why.
says,
Sorry, I
no,
didn't mean to cut.
when we go to Romans, Paul says that what good is circumcision is only good if you keep what? The Torah.
Yeah, meaning if you're a Jew.
No, it's just if you keep Torah, period. It had nothing to do about being Jew. It's saying what good is circumcision unless you keep the Torah.
And he ends it. He says, a true
Right. And he was talking to Gentiles.
on the outside, but actually walking in the way. And so like it's about the actual religion. You get what I'm saying? It's about like the belief system. So like, as we've already established, the Gentiles who are being converted, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so the Gentiles who undergo conversion, as well as Jewish boys, when they are like brought up in Jewish culture, you get circumcised as a sign of being brought into the covenant. And when you're brought into the covenant, that's like you're like a Jew. You're regarded as a Jew, as you like showed in your rabbinical references there. And so if you say someone, is there an instance in which someone is circumcised but not considered under the covenant in relation to Paul's writings?
Hold up, you said somebody is circumcised and not under talking about not under the rabbinic covenant?
Yes. No. I'm gonna start over. So based on how you say, it could be talking about law versus not having the law, or it could be talking about circumcised versus uncircumcised. Just by the way you phrase that, it makes it seem like there's an instance in your mind or Paul's mind where someone can be circumcised but not regarded as under the law. Do you think that's what he's saying? Because in my mind, if you are circumcised and if Paul references you as circumcised, it's in relation to the Mosaic law.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the Mosaic law requires circumcision, but when you say you're not under the law, I'm asking you, what law are you talking about? Are you talking about I'm not under Mosaic law, or are you saying you're not under the rabbinic laws? That's what I'm trying to get understanding from you.
No, I'm talking about Mosaic.
And when you say not under, what do you mean? Like you don't have to follow it, or you talking about in violation?
Like these are the things that you have submitted yourself to. Like a convert would be under law. They are judged by that law, according to that law.
Okay. Everybody's under the law. Like far as I'm saying, everybody has to follow or keep the law of Moses in my mind, because that's what everybody is going to be judged on by Judgment Day. So
Never mind. I think I might just have to pass on the question that I'm asking.
Well, hold on. Let me. There's two things. I think what bro is trying to get you to do is clarify, and I think you did. Maybe he didn't hear you, but clarify what you mean by under the law. Under the law is used in two senses by Paul. He uses under the law to mean under the curses, subject to the curse of the law. And I'm sorry, I started eating here. Under the curses of the law because of disobedient, and he also uses it to mean to be subject to the law, as he says, Christ came born of a woman, born under the law, which means he was born subject. He was responsible for keeping the law.
mm-hmm.
So when you say under the law, what do you mean by that? Can you clarify that?
The second one, subject to the law. That's why I said the converts, they subject themselves and submit themselves to the law.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying everybody, and to me, everybody is subject to the law of Moses. Period. Like whether everybody is, because that's how it's gonna judge the world.
Right.
So
right.
In order to make sure we're on the same page, can you repeat back to me the question that I'm asking you?
You asked me basically. Hold on, let me see. You asked me something about being subject to the law.
No, that's not really.
Okay, hold on. Let me write your question down. Let me get it sure. So go ahead, ask your question again, just to make sure I don't take your premise out of context. Your question is what?
My original question is that when talking about circumcision and uncircumcision, usually back to back like that, we already recognize that those two things, the act of circumcision, is representative of coming underneath the covenant. So if he says you are circumcised, that means you are a part of the covenant. Like you
Hold on, stop right there. That's why I asked you, which covenant are you talking about? Are you talking about the oral traditions, or you say you're talking about the Torah of Moses, right? As far as that covenant.
I didn't know that the oral traditions were a covenant in themselves, but I'm talking about Moses.
Yeah, because you didn't see where I read the Kabalt Old Ha Mitzvah tonight.
Yeah, I saw that.
So that's what
we take them together.
So what now?
It's not like one for Moses, one for oral law. It's like they saw it as a unified thing. And so when I say what I'm asking is not one or the other, but I'm saying does it involve Moses at all, like what's written down? That's what I'm saying. So like the Sadducees, for example, would you say that they are circumcised?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So even though they don't have the oral, they are circumcised. And so they would fall under this circumcised group because they have the law, because they are subject to the law.
But no, they wouldn't fall under the Pharisees. If you say fall under that group, are you talking about the Pharisees?
Circumcision, not Pharisees.
No, listen what I'm saying. Listen what I'm saying. When you say that, I know that all Jews, right, basically get circumcised on the 8th day. We already know that. So what I'm asking you is that what group? Because even though they're circumcised, they would not even be a part of the Pharisee group because they don't accept the Pharisees' traditions and rituals.
That's what I'm saying.
So they don't do the oral, so they wouldn't be a part of their group.
Yeah, hear me out. So like, if you are Sadducee, Karaite, Essene, or Pharisee, all of them would be circumcised, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if I reference the circumcision or being circumcised, it could apply to any of those people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, And if I said uncircumcised, it excludes those 4 groups I just said, right?
Right. Yeah. It could be a Gentile.
Yes, exactly. So when I say circumcised versus uncircumcised, that does not mean Pharisee versus not Pharisee. That means like the one who has the law versus the one who doesn't. Correct?
In some cases, yes.
In what case would that not be applicable?
Okay. Your question is in what place would that what will not be applicable for circumcision and not circumcision about the law?
Yeah, I'm so like this is the thing that I'm getting at. So like if in 5 verse 6 as well as in 6 verse 15, he says the same thing, but the second clause is what's different. In one he says for but only faith working through love, and in the second one, but a new creation. And both of these apply to what it's like to have life in Christ. He also echoes this sort of same motif in Romans 4 when he's talking about Abraham being credited righteousness before he's circumcised, so that same faith can be given to both those who are circumcised as well as those who aren't circumcised. And I'm saying these 2 groups, the circumcised and the uncircumcised, are representative of those who have the law versus those who don't have the law.
Okay.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I can somewhat agree with to a point. Well, in some cases, in the case I won't agree with it is the God-fearers, because the God-fearers, they actually kept Torah, but they just didn't get circumcised.
Okay, and that's what I was asking in the beginning. Is there an example of keeping the law but not being circumcised? And
Yeah, there were people God-fearers.
These God-fearers, are they Gentile or are they Jews?
The Gentile.
Okay, now did we just establish that Paul was circumcising Gentiles?
I believe he was.
So is there a reason in which a Gentile believer should not be circumcised, or should they be circumcised in your opinion?
I said they should be circumcised if they're saying that they are the seed of Abraham, because that is the covenant that the seed of Abraham has. And if we go to Isaiah 52, it said that no uncircumcised person would step in that land anymore. So in order to dwell in that land and in the coming days of the Messiah, you have to be circumcised in your flesh. And I believe if we go somewhere in Ezekiel 46, I don't know if you believe in a temple, it's somewhere in Ezekiel 40 something. It says, no foreigner uncircumcised in heart and in flesh shall not come into his temple.
Oh yeah, I mean, sure. I don't really have an objection or anything to that. Right now, I'm not really giving my input as to what I think these passages mean. I'm just trying to clarify how you see them. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm just listening to you.
Into the void. And to Dan, there was one more question that I had. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna find it. Oh yeah. So there were two verses that I wanted you to exegete for me, just so I was clear on them, on how you read them, because I think while you were going over them, me and Sam were having a discussion in the comments, and I just wanted you to sort of repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
Chugga. Dang, I just read it. Oh, 5:11. But I'm reading from the ESV. But if I, brother, still preach circumcision, why am I still being persecuted? In that case, the offense of the cross has been removed. What did you think that meant again?
He was preaching circumcision, but he was asking, why is he being persecuted? He's being persecuted because he's preaching the cross. You see what I'm saying? Now, hold on, let me show you a verse. Where's that verse where he say they want to get you circumcised so they don't have to preach the cross because of the cross. What
you to interpret? That's sick. That was going to be the second verse, because they go hand in hand, just like.
Okay, what verse is it that I'm talking about? Hello, you going in and out. Hello.
6:12.
Okay. Oh, you on chapter 6? My bad. Okay, so look.
He says it twice.
Okay, so listen. Let's see, 6:12, and then what was the other one you asked me about? Though you asked me about the one up top, right?
5:11 and 6:12.
Okay, so in 5:11, he's basically saying that he does circumcision. Well, why is he being persecuted? He's being persecuted because he teaches and preaches the cross. So when we go over to 6 and 12, he's saying that the only reason they desire to have them circumcised, or they're constraining him about being circumcised, is for they don't have to suffer persecution for the cross of Christ, because they don't want to deal with that. So they rather be about the circumcision instead of the cross. And Paul is saying that he's about the cross over circumcision.
Oh.
But he does both.
So, in your view, he's being persecuted not because he's no longer preaching circumcision, but because he's preaching the cross in addition to circumcision.
Right.
And the people in 6:12, they are highlighting circumcision because if they preach the cross, they too will be persecuted, even though they're teaching them together.
Well, I see that's the thing. I don't think that they're focused on the cross. I think in 6:12, I think they're more focused on the circumcision and more into the tradition of the elders. I don't think they have Christ and him crucified. I don't even think they're really dealing with it, to be honest. That's just my thought.
So what do you think they mean when he says talking about the cross? What does that mean, if not Christ crucified?
No, that's the only thing it can mean, Christ crucified with the cross, that them being redeemed and redemption and coming back in right standing and receiving salvation through Christ's crucifixion and resurrection.
All right. Well, I mean, that's the only questions I had. They were just clarifying questions. I'm not going to give my interpretation of these passages. I just wanted to clarify.
I got a question for you. You cool? So I want to go to Malachi 4, and I want to get your thoughts on Malachi 4. Sam, could you pull it up? Malachi 4 on the screen.
Bible.
Say what?
I got a Bible in front of me.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I want the audience to see it though too.
Oh, gotcha.
That's why I was asking them to pull it up. So I wanted to get your idea about Malachi chapter 4, and what do you think? Especially, do you see this as the second coming of the Messiah?
So I want to say this as a disclaimer. I am by no means a prophetic interpreter, because I've seen many people trip and stumble over a prophetic writing and they think they got it and they will insist on it up and down, and if you don't agree with their interpretation, you're not one of us, sort of deal. And I'm not one of those people. And so I hold all prophecy, especially unfulfilled prophecy or prophecy that I don't even know that's been fulfilled yet or recognized or found out. I kind of hold that with an open hand, at least my interpretation of it with an open hand. So in regard to
this is the second, talking about basically the second coming of the Messiah, you don't believe that? To
Malachi 4, I think this can be seen as one of those double prophecies, in the sense that it relates to the first as well as the second coming of Christ.
Okay, so I would ask you, where did this? Can you show me where this happened in the first coming of Christ?
What is it?
As far as the wicked shall be stubble, and they shall burn them up, right? Let's see where else. Go for those calves and stuff. Basically, them receiving security and safety, because it says, "And ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall." So this is talking about a time of peace for the believers. And then you should tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet in the day that I shall do this, saith the Lord of hosts. So my thing would be, like, when did these things happen the first time? If you believe that, like this is nothing new under the sun, I was trying to see, when can you point to basically the first time that these things occurred?
So like if you interpret this with a literal view that people are actually burning, um, where there are actual ashes underneath the people's feet, um, then it'll definitely be more fitting with the second coming. And I think I'm pretty sure that's a viable option. I when I read this, I definitely think about the second coming of Christ. But I think it can be read with a spiritual lens as well, because it's talking about the coming of the day of the Lord, and he says before this day actually comes, Elijah is going to be sent, and he's going to, turn the children to the hearts of the fathers and the hearts to the children. Um, and Jesus actually echoes this type of passage in regard to John. And so he's saying that just as John was a precursor before this great and awesome day of the Lord, the same happened in his first coming. I believe the same is going to happen again in his second coming. But it's going to be less going to be less on a spiritual level. Him triumphing over the powers and disarming them, and the people who actually lived during that day, dying in unbelief, who are now punishing. Like it's going to be a worldly, physical thing. You know what I'm saying? So I think that the prophet Elijah here, behold, I will send Elijah the prophet before the great and awesome day of the Lord. I think that is definitely John the Baptist, but I also think this is going to happen again in a second sense.
I'm gonna tell you why I don't think that's John the Baptist. If we go over to Malachi 3, I believe that is talking about John the Baptist there, because if you heard me earlier, I said Malachi 3 deals with Christ's first coming, and Malachi 4 actually deals with his second coming. Because when we read Malachi 3, it talks about him going to the temple and somebody who prepares the way for him. And that is, for what I see, that is John the Baptist coming to prepare the way for him.
Yeah, and John the Baptist is referenced as coming in the spirit of Elijah, and somehow 5 wouldn't be relevant in that case, right?
So what now?
So you know how John the Baptist is referenced as coming in the spirit of Elijah, and preceding the Lord. If you interpret that as it is, why does chapter 4 verse 5 not fit that paradigm?
Not fit the paradigm for it to be John the Baptist, because when we look at John the Baptist, he fulfilled half of this prophecy. He fulfilled the first half, as far as turning the hearts of the fathers to the son, as we see in Luke 1:17, and that's exactly what it said that John the Baptist was going to do. But when we look at the second half, when it says turning the children's hearts back to the fathers, we don't see that John the Baptist, he didn't do that.
And what is your interpretation of turning those hearts to the fathers again?
Basically, there is an Elijah-like figure, like either he coming in the spirit of Elijah, with preaching repentance.
And you said John did not do that.
See what now?
And you're saying John did not do that.
You let me finish. This is what I'm saying. This Elijah is coming to where he's going to preach repentance, and it's going to be like a mass of people. It's a revival of people whose hearts are really going to turn and seek after the Most High. I don't see that basically in John's time. He did preach repentance. People did repent.
Yeah,
Are you? I'm listening.
Yeah, listening.
Yeah.
But you don't think the large groups of cities that were coming to visit him were actually hearing him?
Hearing who?
John the Baptist.
John the Baptist. I mean, many people got baptized, but the Pharisees, basically, with their stony hearts, they didn't, and the Sadducees, they didn't really do that.
So you think, in order for this to be relevant for John the Baptist, those two groups of people had to be included in that, and not everybody else?
No, I don't think those two people had to. We don't see in Luke's, the prophecy doesn't say that he was going to restore the children. It just said the fathers. See what I'm saying? So that's why I don't think that second half, I think that another Elijah, a person coming with that spirit, is gonna do this. Just like as we look in Revelations 11, it doesn't necessarily say Elijah, but whoever this person that is as a witness, he's gonna do something similar to what Elijah can do.
So I think this turn the hearts to the fathers to their children, children to the fathers. That's like it's like causing the assumption is that they're not turned toward each other, meaning they're not like considering each other, they're not living in love, and they're not living as they ought to. And the second clause of verse 6 says, "Lest I come and strike the land with a decree of utter destruction," meaning that this is going to happen in order to prevent a type of destruction from coming. And I think this is one of those. So like people will look at certain prophecies and be like, "Hey, Jesus only fulfilled half of this, therefore the next Christ that comes is not going to be Jesus." I guess the same type of thing can be applied with John the Baptist here. I personally don't necessarily agree with that, especially as applied to Jesus. But this is saying that like he's going to come so that damnation and this like type of punishment does not come upon the land. And that's very much what John the Baptist came preaching. Even when the Jews showed up, he said, "Who warned you about the coming wrath of God?" And this is in the midst of people asking, "Hey, what can I do to actually get right with God?" And he's actually instructing them in these ways. And so I think even though this is not, because I said it's a double prophecy, it's relevant in the first coming and the second. I do not think that all elements are fulfilled in the first coming. And I do think some of these await until the second coming. I do not think that because it all hasn't been fulfilled that chapter 4 verse 5 cannot be in reference to John the Baptist, if that makes sense.
See what now? You said chapter 5 cannot be in reference to John the Baptist?
There's no chapter 5. Chapter 4, verse 5. Just because John the Baptist didn't do everything doesn't mean that he didn't fulfill that. That's what I'm saying. Just like people who say, "Oh, Jesus didn't fulfill every single role as Messiah, therefore he can't be Messiah." That same type of logic, I'm saying, no, I don't think that's necessarily the case.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you got to show me in the New Testament where it said that John the Baptist fulfilled children's hearts to the preparing of whatever the second portion, because when we look, it's fair to say that we see that the Father is actually pursuing after the people through his Son. Yes or no?
You mean the Father isn't like God the Father?
I'm telling the Heavenly Father, the Creator, he is pursuing people.
That's always been true, yeah.
No, I'm saying we see that not that wasn't always true, because there was a point in time where the Most High really stayed quiet, and you don't see no kind of inspiration or no divineness going on, right? Like we don't see him dealing with people, as far as you don't see nobody saying, "Hey, in the Spirit of the Lord came on them," and people were prophesying. Like even when we read the Apocrypha, we don't necessarily, which I don't really think the Apocrypha is divinely spoken of. I think it's more of a historical basis, but we don't see nobody like being having an encounter with the Ruach or the Spirit to make them write things or see things, or you don't see those things. So it was a point in time where the manifestation of
like
the most. Hello. So what?
You mean that in the sense of like there's no big prophet in Israel? Then yeah, I mean I would agree, but that's not how I define the Father pursuing after his people.
No, I'm saying we don't see him really dealing with them like that, right? We don't see really where it's like the first person from what I see that really had a really divinely encounter or from the Most High is when we look at John the Baptist's father. A lot of people say that that's like the Dark Ages, like 400 years. It's like kind of like a dark age there, where the Most High really just didn't really talked to nobody as far as a prophet goes or whatever. You know, there's no recorded history of anybody through being having any kind of fellowship with the Most High through the Ruach. Sam. Hello?
I'm here. I can hear you.
No, I said
I'm still
Sam.
here, bro. I'm still
No,
here, bro.
I thought Sam might have wanted to get in. I was gonna, because I know me and him been talking, so I was gonna let Sam get in or say what he wanted to say.
I'm just following along, bro. He got a question. I'm actually grab something to eat.
Oh yeah, you did say
What you eating, Sam?
Turkey wings, spicy turkey wings. What do you call it? Buffalo turkey wing.
Dang, bro. What your hats on?
Hey, let Vinny on, man. Hey, tell Vinny to come in because Vinny has been so supportive, man. Put the link back in there for Vinny, man. Tell Vinny to jump on.
Guys,
Say what?
I said Vinny is definitely the cheerleader for you guys. I'm telling
Nah, Vinny's been a good brother. Hey, you can stay on. What's his name?
Sure.
What's up?
But yeah, those were really the only questions I had for you guys in relation to this teaching.
Okay. Oh man, appreciate you watching, and I hope there was I hope we edified you, my brother.
Yeah, it was nice. It was alright.
Yeah, that's what's up. Vinny,
Yeah.
man, come on up here, brother.
Yeah.
He on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hey man, I want to say, hey, shalom to you, Vinny, because even when I was in the Solar Vision Debate League, man, this brother has always showed a lot of love and a lot of support, and I want to thank you, bruh. We ended it tonight. We went over 5 and 6, and like especially you really want to check out when we get to 5, like the first chapter 5, when we deal with 1 through 4. You got to check that out when you get a chance. The lesson ain't really that long because it didn't really take us that long to actually get through it tonight, man. But man, come up here to give your shout outs, any questions, whatever you want, man. Go ahead, brother. I yield the floor to you.
Yeah, no, I don't have no questions. Just peace to you and the brother Sam. Um, I you know, I I've been following the whole lessons, and they're very informational. It's a lot of information packed in it, and I appreciate it because it's been a lot of stuff that I learned myself. Especially dealing with the histories. I missed this one tonight. I was taking a nap. I meant to wake myself up, forgot to set the alarm, and it is what it is. I might just go watch the replay, but I think you did a real good job, man. There's a lot of information in there, and I think that it has to be addressed, because I think, for the most part, I was talking to Sister Shanti the other day, and I was telling her, I think that most people look at this as like a religion. I mean, I know there's a lot of spiritual stuff in it, but it's really a history book of a certain people that that have went to a lot of stuff, and it's supposed to be as a sign, to everybody else, because of course to the Jew first, So if they get punished for breaking these commandments, and they get punished for doing, having their own rules and regulations, and they're tacking on stuff to what we see them giving all throughout the book, then nobody else is going to escape no judgment. You know what I'm saying? So I don't understand why people, or how people can see or think that God is talking against his own laws, like it was something wrong with the laws and not the people. It's just too many examples, I think, that people ignore and think that it's a whole new narrative that comes about in the so-called New Testament. I really hate that term because it kind of has this um, thought process that comes along with it, that is something totally new, But I think you did a excellent job, bro. And I appreciate the invite to hop on the panel and say a little piece. And yeah, I yield.
You want to
Right.
say something?
But yeah, brother Vinny in the building. Long-term supporter of the ministry. Is always a blessing to see you, bro. Always support and always there. Blessing to see you, bro. We appreciate it. Absolutely. Anybody else have any other questions or want to join us on the panel? For those of you guys that are just tuning in, I see we had a couple people just come in. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell button so you can receive all the notifications of when we go live. This has been the series. We just finishing up the series on Galatians, the letter of Paul to the Galatians. Pretty awesome series. A lot of information, as Brother Vinny just said, a lot of information. We brought in the language folk, like Sister Shanti. Matter of fact, we didn't get Brother Renzo on here, so we're gonna have to get with Brother Renzo. His schedule. He got a newborn. Their baby he's dealing with. I think he said he had the kids or something. I think he had a newborn or something. And so he's been out of commission there for a little bit. I see Deshaun laughing. That's not me, huh? Okay, I don't know what that means. Oh, okay. I guess you're talking with him in the chat, Brother Yahukanon. But yeah, we certainly appreciate Deshaun Jeffries as well. As stated, we're not running anywhere. We love to have dialogue, simple, respectful dialogue. We don't always agree on everything, but we can, come to some kind of common ground or just agree to disagree and let you guys decide, bring out the information and let the viewers decide on what you want to accept at that particular juncture, what the Ruach has impressed on you to receive as true. So, as stated, we put in a lot of work, mostly Brother Yahukanon, and putting together this PowerPoint stuff, and we threw at him all the information that we had. So, and he compiled it and did a very good job and brought it out. And, a lot of late nights up, early morning studying, so that we can make sure we bring you guys quality information, qualitative information, not just a bunch of theories and opinions that's been dogmatically brainwashed, that we've been dogmatically brainwashed with. We actually do these studies, man. We actually go through and study and bring these things out for you guys. We study the language, get into the history, the culture, all of those things that you learn in Bible college. I don't understand how these scholars and theologians miss this. I just don't understand that. If you're using these principles, you're looking at the history. Brother Yahukanon went in, he threw a curveball because I wasn't expecting him to go that deep, but bro went in deep tonight. He got into the words, the two different words dealing with the ordinances and how Paul is using two different words. These types of things are important. Just because you see ordinance there, or law there, does not mean that he's talking about the written Torah. Does not mean that he's dealing with the ordinances that was given to Moshe on the mountain. It does not mean that. So we have to take it in its proper context. And a lot of folk, both Christian and Hebrew, fail to realize that. Is that you have to take the text in context. You cannot use your 20th century, or what century we're in, the 21st century mindset, or 20th century, doesn't matter. 20th, 21st century mindset and American westernized mindset and try to interpret the text with it, because Paul wasn't living in the 21st century. Neither was any of the other apostles or the disciples and folks that he was writing to. He wasn't living in the 21st century. He wasn't speaking English, and all of that. The book is a Hebrew book. written by Hebrew folk for Hebrew folk in most cases, and those strangers, Gentile goyim, that sojourn among Israel. And so we have to interpret the book in light of that. Brother Dex T. Israel say they know the truth, they just don't share it. Wicked, unclean spirits. Absolutely, absolutely. Brother Benny said Western mindset as well. Absolutely. You cannot take a Western mindset and interpret an Eastern Shemitic writing. You just can't do it. I'll give you an example. In China, you see how they eat dogs, cats, rats, whatever else that they eat. Even the folk here in America that eat unclean shrimps, lobsters, crabs, and all of that, they're not eating nobody's bats. They're not feeding bats to their babies. You know, you start asking them, let's just eat a bat. No, you done lost your mind. It's a different mindset. These folks grow up eating bat. They don't think anything is wrong with it. They think something wrong with you for wasting good meat, I guess, as they call it. And so you have to take it in a mindset. When I was at Morgan State University, the historical black college, I was taking up a double major, philosophy and religious studies, because they lied to me and told me they had a theology program. I didn't find out until after I had done my prerequisites and started getting into my major. I'm like, man, this is all for philosophy and Zoroastrianism and all of that. What does this got to do with the Bible? And well, I'm sorry, we don't have a theology program. We don't have a theology program. It's philosophy and religious studies. But the Most High had me do that for a reason, and I appreciate that. The time that I spent there. But one thing that I did learn during my time there, especially on the business side, not even on the philosophy and religious studies, because I did a double major in philosophy and religious studies and business administration. And in the business class, we were talking about the two different types of philosophies. What we was dealing with, decision making. How to make the optimum decision, and the process that's involved in making a decision or getting together a plan of action. And if you ever go to China, it's different. They don't have a Western mindset. In the West, if you ask somebody a question and can they do you a favor, they'll give you an immediate response. They're on it. Everything is microwave real fast. Well, if you're in the Eastern cultures, they might make you wait a month before they even answer you. Might not even give you any inkling that they heard you. They're going to need to mull it over, and they're a lot slower in introspective in their decision-making process. Also, disciples. I've been studying the martial arts for about 20 years now, Wing Chun Kung Fu. And so I understand the process of discipleship from a Hebraic perspective, from an Eastern standpoint, right? That the disciple, the first thing that he does is imitates his master, right? So when you begin to get that mindset, because I did the martial arts and understood how it's passed down, and understanding, the loyalty that you have to your sifu. We call them sifus, to your sifu or teacher, or they call them master. I'm not calling anyone my master, but sifu, they got grandmasters, all that other kind of stuff. But the point being is that that's a different culture. A lot of times, even in America, with the training of the martial arts, in the Eastern culture, you might live with the master for the time period. I mean, actually live in his house, eat his food, drink, sleep with his kids, not in a sexual connotation, but I mean, sleep where they sleep at and all of that other kind of stuff. It's a different culture. So unless you immerse yourself in that culture, you don't understand why they eat bats, right? You don't understand that. You don't understand a lot of the things that they do, kicking their shin against a tree, a hard tree, you know, just kicking it or punching a hard tree or punching bricks and stuff. You don't understand that process. The traditional medicine, how they think about, you know, we got someone else coming on. This brother Orthodox Moore in the building.
Yeah, hey, put the link back in there too, because I asked John Williams to come on as well, because and peace to Moore, man, because actually, you know, he's been very supportive of us as well. And John Williams, I appreciate your support, man. You know, you was a faithful viewer as well, man. So come on the panel, man. What's up, Moore?
John Williams, he went to HBCU too. What's good, brother Moore? How are you, bro?
No, all is well. All is well. I was digging that analogy you was talking about with the martial arts and whatnot, and it was making me think of like, so, you know, like in Kung Fu and whatnot, they have like the regular students, but then they got like the indoor disciples. You know what I'm saying? Where they do like the whole Bai Si ceremony, where you know what I'm saying, the master drinks the cup of tea, all that type of stuff. He brings you inside. He's going to show you extra stuff that he's not showing the other people. The regular people just coming through like every now and again. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're the indoor disciple now, right? Like, so with the laws and whatnot, like, in all the critiques I'm seeing coming against you guys, I'm not understanding where the critiques are coming from, because it's like, it seems like people are saying like that you mandatorily have to follow laws that cannot bring you salvation just by following them in and of themselves or whatnot. I'm like, no, like y'all are missing it or whatnot. Because, for instance, like look at like the Passover, right? So in order for like a sojourner to eat the Passover with the Israelites, they got to be circumcised. But that's not saying that everybody who's a sojourner has to be circumcised. It's like, no, if you want to partake of this, you got to be circumcised. But in order to have salvation, you don't need to be circumcised. You know what I'm saying? So like there's an indoor policy. Like if you want to follow these laws to a certain extent, if you want, go ahead, have fun at it. But you don't. But it's not a necessity in order for you to walk with the Most High.
Absolutely. And that's why they had the levels in the synagogue. You know, you had your God-fearers and all of that. You had your proselytes, converts that had fully converted and accepted all. You had your God-fearers. You had those. You had the viewers, you know, that would just coming by, you know, checking out and seeing what was going on. There, as they say, is levels to this thing, man. And like you said, Christ himself, Hamashiach himself, had his 12 Talmudim, the 12 disciples, but yet he took 3 of them aside and took them, you know, and really went to work on them. That was his inner circle, you know. Shalom, sister. Yep, absolutely, bro. Absolutely. So people must understand that, bro. People don't want to study, you know, and what we seeing is dogma. These Christian apologists and things, Pauline Christians. I'm not talking about my fellow waywalkers out there, but the Pauline Christians, I'm talking about the fellow waywalkers too. Some of them got some crazy stuff going on with them too. So, but just to be honest and keep it 100. But you know, you got to understand the culture. You can't just go off of dogma and what you've been taught. And you know, I spent 30 some years in Christendom. You know, I've been through the Bible college and all of that. You know, I was taught all of these doctrines and things that later, as I begin to study and as I begin to get into the history, as I begin to, you know, study the Paleo Hebrew language and all of that kind of stuff and how it was translated into the Greek and getting into the Apostolic Polyglot Bible, which actually focuses on that area in itself of showing you which words was translated, which Greek words was used to translate which Hebrew, concrete Hebrew concepts. And so, you know, I think, you know, with these guys, for the most part, I don't think that they have a rebuttal. So the thing that they have to do is just be negative. Oh, Sam is dumb. Brother Yehukanon is dumb. Whatever they want to say it, because they really have no argument. We're bringing evidence to the table. We're actually bringing book, chapter, and verse to start with, and then we're getting into the extra biblical sources, you know, that substantiate exactly what we're bringing forth, just to show that Brother Yahukanon and I didn't get with Sister Shanti and Brother BA and Brother Renzo, and just make up stuff. Oh, we're gonna make up a new hot doctrine. Now we know everybody say that Paul meant this when he's writing Galatians. We know what the traditional historical literary history of the text is, if you will, but we're just going to go against that because, you know, that's just what we want to do. We want to be different. Nah, it didn't go down like that. You know, we're actually studying the text, you know, diligently, you know, asking the Most High through his Ruach to give us understanding. And then, you know, each of us coming together and bringing different aspects kind of helped us, you know, mold and shape that. And this thing took on a kind of a face of its own. And, you know, so yeah, bro, that's what it is.
Yeah, I want to be clear though on something, because I feel like the people who are critiquing what y'all are saying aren't hearing the full argument of what you're saying, and that they might be getting triggered early on when they hear you say law. You know what I'm saying? So like I was talking to one of the brothers and whatnot, and I asked him like, so do you believe that Christians should keep the moral law? He was like, well, yeah. So are you saying that a believer in the Mashiach needs to keep more than the moral law in order to be upright? You know what I'm saying? Not necessarily on like, how to say this, like not that following the moral law in and of itself will give you salvation, but I'm talking about like in terms of just to be upright in your character and all that type of stuff, that they should keep the anything or just the moral law. Do they need to keep more than the moral law?
Right. Right. See, I think the thing is that their doctrine is inconsistent. When you talk about hermeneutics, they use these terms, and that's why I thank the Most High, because I used to kick myself like, boy, that was the dumbest thing you ever did, was go to college to deal with theology and the Bible, and then refuse to take money from church folk. That was the stupidest thing you ever did in your life. You know, so like, you know, I was kicking myself because of that. Like, man, you should have went the engineering route, or you should have went, you know, another route there. I eventually did do the computer thing and all of that, but you know, what it did was, and I thank the Most High for this, is that allowed me to see through all of this superfluous, highfalutin terms. You know, people, you'll hear these guys say Christian apologists. One in particular, that guy, what's his name that keep running from me? Eric Mason, that's his name. Bishop Eric Mason and all of that. Like, they'll use these terms and stuff, hermeneutics and the epistemological, and you know, all of these terms, and folk be like, wow, just like they are struck, or you know, because of the vocabulary acumen and the vocabulary skills and stuff like that. But it's like, you know, I'm looking at it like, nah, bro, I've been to Bible college, and you know, I see where, you know, dogmatism and tradition is actually, that's what they teach you. They teach you what, whatever, if you go into an evangelical or a Catholic with St. Mary's, because my mentor, Elder Scruggs, he was the assistant pastor when I was a young minister, and he used to take me around and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. He went to a Catholic Bible college, St. Mary's, and so you know, the teaching there and you know, the way that they teach in things is different. The doctrines and things is different. So you know, but if we're talking about hermeneutics, using observation, interpretation, and before you apply the text, observe exactly what the text is saying. It's the first thing I learned about hermeneutics. I think it was the first day. What they told us was observation, interpretation, and then application. So if they're teaching these things in Bible college, why in the world are folk coming up with inconsistent hermeneutics? It's just inconsistent, and they don't have any way And like I said, it's largely, Pauline Christians, but, it is present in the Hebrew community as well, because they don't want to study, or they don't want to get a book that come from the white man, that came from a white man or something, or whatever their issue is. But when we take a look at the theology and the hermeneutics, it's just inconsistent. It's really inconsistent. Paul is saying that he kept the law, but he's teaching against the law, but it's just pure confusion and headache medicine. And I think that they see that, since we've been bringing that out. And so the only thing they can do is, run interference and cause distractions. And like you said, I don't think they actually hear the actual arguments, because once they see us going into, the historical context, bringing the linguists in the building, getting brother Renzo, sister Shanti, getting brother BA on here, getting into the Roman imperial cult context and all of that, which was very prevalent and influential in the first century, and influential. It's Paul is writing about a lot of this stuff, but if you don't understand that, then now you got to make up your own stuff as you go along, bro. And I think that that's a major issue.
Yeah, like, so when you were in going in with the Bible college and whatnot, with the people who are really on like the Pauline Christianity, like, so maybe you can help me understand the concept of where people lean on the concept of grace, and then there's this beef for this concept of when they hear stuff like faith without works is dead, they it's like they hear is like, no, you need to do works to be saved. Because I feel like that's what's going on right now. Is people are hearing you say like you need works to be saved versus hearing faith without works is dead. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I think it's and I'm working on this now in the documentary that we're bringing out. We will address these terms. They don't understand terms like grace or faith. One thing we got to understand is that, like I said, the Bible is a Hebrew book written by Hebrew people, largely for mostly Hebrew folk, and their Gentile sojourners who were sojourning with them. That being said, in order for us to understand, in the first century, we were still dealing with Hebrews, especially when you're dealing with Paul. Paul, he said he was a Pharisee of the Pharisee, but after he wrote the book of Galatians, Paul giving his confession, and he told us what he practiced, and he told us he was still a Pharisee even then. So even in his mindset, he still had that Pharisaic mindset. And where did that come from? What does that have to do with what we're talking about? Well, how are you going to get a staunch Hebrew Pharisee to just wake up overnight and tell you, oh, we got this new thing called grace and faith now, and we no longer need to observe the divine teachings that was given to Moshe? And that's it just makes no sense whatsoever, besides the fact that you have Paul actually confessing that what is it, Acts 24 and 14, I believe it is, where he gave his actual confession, and he said, I believe everything as it is written, as my I keep the same way my ancestors did it. So like I said, I think the problem is that they don't realize that for instance, grace. Let's take grace. Grace in the abstract sense of the word, it's vague. That just means vague. The Greek language is pretty much vague language, like American language, like love. What is love? Some people believe love is beating them upside the head. I done had some females like that. You don't love me unless you beat me. Well, you got the wrong one. I'm not choking you, beating you, burning hot stuff. Nah, where you come from? You know what I mean? So they think that's love. I don't see it that way. You see what I mean? So love is a term of relativity if you don't have any definitives. And this is the problem within Christendom, largely within Christendom. And this is why you have all of these interpretations. well, I believe this, and well, I believe that. So now I'm gonna have this denomination over here, and I'm gonna start my denomination over there, and we're gonna have all these 40,000 splits within Christendom, right? They talk about us Hebrews and say, well, hey, you know, you got this camp, that camp, whatever, but largely we believe the same thing, you know, some minor differences that's not really imperative, you know, who Esau is and all of that kind of stuff, because I don't believe Esau is the white man. I don't accept that. I believe he's Japheth. But you got some brothers that said he's Esau, But the basics is there. We still believe that we are responsible for these divine teachings. These within Christendom, with their 40,000 splits, 40,000 denominations. This is why, because you have these vague terms like love, and you ask them, what is love? What is the biblical definition of love? Well, the Greek word agape, and then we got what is it? Philemon, all these the Greek terms or whatever. It's vague, so it's open to your interpretation, my interpretation, this person interpretation. But when we get into the concrete Hebrew, all of that nonsense cease. When you understand the Hebraic concept, like when we find in John, 1 John, he says, listen, it's just this simple. Love is obeying, keeping the commandments. That's simple. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. If you love me, keep my commandments. Hamashiach said the same thing. So when we talk about terms like grace, when they get to grace, unmerited favor, yeah, well, you could say that. I wouldn't say that they wrong, but that's not the Hebraic perspective of grace. Grace, hin in the Hebrew is the Hebrew word hin. And when they thought about grace, Hebrews, they thought about a camp, going inside the camp, much like you running in your house. You got a group of folk behind you, KKK or Negroes or whoever is behind you, and you run to them. Once I get to my block, when I get on my block, I know I got some peoples on my block. I know I got my cousin and them on my block. I'm good. I hit my block, right? So once I get in my hood, you know, I'm good, because I know somebody see me running and see you running behind me, they're gonna cluck you upside your head or pop some hot ones at you. You know what I mean? So that's how you feel, and that's how the Hebrews thought about the word grace. The word grace pretty much means to take up camp and settle in the camp. The Hebrews used to put their camp in sort of a semicircle, which created a wall. And so it's the wall that divides. It makes a separation. It separates you from the danger, and it brings you into the comfort zone where you got food, you got safety, you got health, you got everything else is inside of the camp. And this is the way that the Hebrews thought. This is why Paul said we are saved by grace. Which grace? The separation, the line of demarcation, the separation, that line that separates me and puts me under the protection of the camp. And this is the way that they saw it. Faith. When we talk about faith, faith is the Greek word pistis. It's the Greek word pistis, which the Greeks, those who translated the Septuagint 250, 300 years, translated the Hebrew text into the Greek. They use pistis for the Hebrew concept and word of emunah, which means to be steady. If you want to get a concrete picture, that word emunah or faith is used when it says that Joshua and Caleb held up Moshe's arms, and as long as they held up his arms steady, that the Israelites were winning, right? And so if you look up that word where it says they held his arm, that's the word emunah, meaning steady or faith. So it's not just a carnal ascension or belief. That is a part of it, because Paul does use the word faith for belief. Sometimes for a simple belief. But if you take that Greek word back to its original context, it's a legal word, which means somebody taking an oath or putting assurance in somebody, not based on a simple belief or because you feel like it. No, it's based on evidence. This is why Hebrews say now faith is the substance. It is that right now. Faith is substance. It's not just a carnal ascension. And this is where they get wrong. So we're not saved by the law. We saved by faith. But faith means to be consistent in walking in the way and walking in the divine teachings that was given to Moshe. That's the way that the Hebrews saw faith. And I can prove to you that Paul saw it that way too. And this is why you have a conflict. This is why a lot of Christian folks, some Hebrews too, run into conflict with Paul, because Paul gonna run in. Your version of Paul is gonna run into conflict with James. It's just that simple. It's been doing that for 2,000 years since they both wrote them writings.
It's gonna run into a conflict with Paul himself, though, because honestly, the
Absolutely
version of Paul actually he contradicts himself, especially if you look at Romans and then you compare Romans to Galatians and. It doesn't add up. It just don't.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right, bro. So just like bro said, first and foremost, they're going to run into conflict with Paul himself. You're going to make Paul contradict himself. And that's why you got a lot of our Hebrew brothers talking about Paul was a deceitful little lying little devil and all of that. And I'm constantly having to battle for Paul. And then when I'm calling Pauline Christians, they say, bro, what are you duplicitous? You being duplicitous. And I'm not. You know, Paul is not the savior. Paul is not. Matter of fact, Paul wasn't even the disciple to the Gentiles. He's not the original disciple or apostle that was sent to the Gentiles. That charge was given to Cephas, who was Peter. And so, you know, Paul is my second favorite apostle, and that's why I go in. I don't like for people to put their mouth on Paul because they don't understand. Like Peter said, they don't understand the law, and therefore they can't understand Paul. So, you know, like bro said, the Christian view of Paul, the Christian Pauline theology in Christendom is very hermeneutically inconsistent. The process of interpreting Paul's writings is inconsistent. Like bro say in Romans, oh, I'm establishing the law. Oh, the Gentiles, Romans 2:14, the Gentiles are keeping the law. Oh, the doers of the law shall be justified. And then we get into Galatians, no flesh shall be justified by the law. Wait a minute, bro. Like, hold up. You got an issue here. So besides that, then you run into Paul, right? They try, James, they try to explain away Paul and say, oh, you got to use this, and you got to twist that because you got an understanding of this portion of Paul here. But when you take a look at it, like I said, when you get to that book of James, that kills that justification sola fide, which pretty much just means by belief alone. We are saved by belief alone. Paul didn't teach that. None of the apostles taught that, period. So the faith that they was talking about, that's why your modern translations are starting to use the word faithfulness as a, look it up. Don't take my word for it. Those you guys scholars out there, come do your, matter of fact, Blue Letter Bible is free. If you take and do a translation comparison, when you go to your text, do a translation comparison or when Paul is mentioning these faiths, and a lot of times you're going to see that they translated the word now as faithfulness as opposed to just mere faith. And I think these are the issues because they don't understand these basic concepts. You ask a Christian, what is righteousness? They can't tell you. What is unrighteousness? Can't tell you. What is sin? Everything, and if they do say something, it's going to be abstract. What is sin? All unrighteousness. Well, what is unrighteousness? Can you show it to me in the Bible? Well, unrighteousness is when you know to do good and you don't do it. So what is good? I'm going to keep on going down this trail until you give me something definitive, right? So, because, you know, and this is why they have these issues, and this is why all these interpretations, when you take it back to the concrete Hebrew language, it becomes a whole lot clearer, and it makes a whole lot more sense than this abstract stuff that come. But to be truthful with you, when you really do the etymology of the Greek, it's going to take you back there too. It's going to take you right back there. Like I said, pistis, I think that's the word. Yeah, pistis was first used about 600 BC by one of those philosophers. I forget what his name is. One of those Greek philosophers or what have you. Look it up. you Bible scholars out there, it was first used around 600 BC in a legal sense to mean an oath or an affirmation based on evidence. It's always based on evidence. It's never just based on, yo, I like you, I'm feeling you, you my boy, so I'm gonna believe in you. No, whether I like you or not, if you're not consistent, I'm not going to vouch for you. It's just going to be that simple. I'm not going to vouch for you. I'm not going to take an oath on you. I don't know what kind of person bro. Yeah, I like bro. I mess with bro. But as far as me vouching for him, fixing your car, I never seen bro fix a car. I don't even know if he can fix a car. So I'm not going to just, vouch for you in that sense. But if I seen you fix cars, now I can speak and put faith or pistis in you. Nah, that's my bro. I didn't seen him fix 10,000 cars over the past 10 years. Ain't nothing like that, bro, over there. So it's based on something. Now faith is the substance. That's what the books say. Faith ain't just believing. Faith is substance and evidence of things not seen. So, and they tell me well, how I just told you pistis was based on a legal term evidence, but when you go to the book of Hebrews, I think it's 11th chapter, he tell you the same thing there. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, and the what? The evidence of things not seen. And so all of this mystical, we just believe stuff is not in the book. Justification, sola fide, is a creation of that the Protestant church father. I'm forgetting his name now because I'm half tired there. But the one that wanted to throw out the book of James, Martin Luther. That's his name. Martin Luther. That's a creation of Martin Luther, who wanted to, the founder of the Protestant religions. Justification sola fide has no biblical grounding anywhere in the whole of the Bible. Nowhere where you just believe something and you save because you believe. James specifically told you, if you believe and you don't have no works, your faith ain't faith. You can't separate faith from works. And this is why we have the ability to recognize Paul's writings and James, because we don't see a conflict there. They were saying the same thing. When Paul said faith, we are not saved by the works of the law, the mixat ma'aseh ha-Torah, those works of the law which we found in the Qumran caves and all of that. Paul was absolutely right. We ain't saved by no oral traditions and all this other kind of stuff, but by the faithfulness of Christ. In other words, the example that Christ set. What Christ said. He was obedient to the divine teachings. He just wasn't caught up in man-made interpretations and things of that nature. And so I guess that's why I would say that that we have these issues. It's an issue of defining terms. They cannot, for those of you guys out there, and I know I've been rambling on, I'm about to stop. I'm tired myself, but and give the brethren time enough to speak. But I did want to get that out there for those of you guys out there. Ask your pastor, ask your bishop, the pope, whoever. What is faith? What is sin? What is righteousness? And I bet you a dime to a dozen, they're gonna give you some abstract thing that ain't gonna give you nowhere clearer to an answer than when you first asked them. What is love? Well, do unto others as you would have. Yeah, that's a part of it. But as opposed to being simple, what is love? How do we love them? Know that we love the Most High when we keep His commandments. That's 1 John 5, the 5th chapter, right? So I mean, simple. What is sin? All unrighteousness is sin. Okay, so what's unrighteousness? Not to be righteous. Okay, so what's righteous?
Exactly.
They have no answers for these things, and if they do answer, it's going to be something that's abstract, nothing that's concrete, solid. When we say concrete, it's based on the 5 senses: touch, see, taste, feel. Touch, see, smell, hear, and feel. So if it's not appealing to those 5 senses, it ain't Hebrew, because that's what the Hebrew language, that's what the Most High spoke to the ancient Hebrews, our ancestors, and He spoke to them in a concrete Hebrew language so that they would understand the way, and there's no confusion. This is why you got all the confusion in Christendom, and everybody got the truth, but the neighbor down the street who they contradict their doctrines conflict with, they got the truth too down there. We got the truth over here, and nobody got any answers. And I think that's a major problem in Christendom, bro.
Yeah, and to count back off that, like we're having a similar problem now that was going on back then, is that there was a real literacy issue in terms of the language at the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, so to the points where like what I appreciate about what y'all are bringing out in terms of like the oral law and all that type of stuff is the fact, like, so even with the Sadducees and Pharisees, they had a difference in tradition, like you're talking about now. Like the Christians have difference in traditions, etc. Whatnot. Like they couldn't agree on the concept of resurrection. I mean, that's a pretty big concept to differ on, you know what I'm saying? And it didn't go back to what was written down, you know what I'm saying? It went back to their own personal conjectures on the matter, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, like, this is the part that I'm failing to understand from a lot of your opposition in the sense to where, like, there's like, so again, your opposition will tell me like, okay, no, we were supposed to keep the moral law. I'm like, cool. And then comes the question you're asking, like, so what is the moral law? And how do we know what that is, etc.? How do we know it's consistent and whatnot, right? Particularly, like, and people got to understand that there is some consistent law, because like it says in Genesis, I think 25 or 26, that Abraham kept the Torah, right? Well, if he kept the Torah and Moses wasn't around, what Torah was he keeping?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And if he's dealing with Melchizedek, right? You know what I'm saying? Like this is the part I really don't catch. Like, so if he's dealing with Melchizedek, right? And you got David and you got the Mashiach talking about like some Melchizedek concepts, right? And then you got Hebrews talking about it, right? How come we can't just line this all up and whatnot? Because keeping the moral law does not mean that you need to keep the sacrificial law. What it means is you need to keep the meaning of the sacrificial law. And I don't think a lot of people can. Like, so for instance, Paul says the same thing that the Mashiach talks about. The Mashiach says, get on the cross and die daily. You know what I'm saying? Like Paul says, I become a living sacrifice, and then he dies daily, but via the renewing of his mind.
Right.
Like, so they're teaching, that's how you know you love the Most High, is you're making yourself a living sacrifice. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You're not saying, oh, I just believe in with the Mashiach, that therefore I can just sit on my hands and do nothing and I'm straight. No. If you love him, if you love the Most High, if you love any teachings that came to you from any of the teachers, etc., you're going to manifest them. You're not going to just sit on them. That's why he's sitting and telling the Sadducees and Pharisees, you're standing at the gates of heaven. You're not letting other people go in, but you're not going in yourselves. What are y'all doing?
Right.
What are you doing?
Right. Right. And I want to address that moral law, bro. If you look up, what is my dictionary I got on my phone? I think this is Webster's 16. I'll tell you in a minute. Webster's 1828. So I got the Webster's American Dictionary of the English Language, Webster 1828. Look up the word precept, right? It's going to tell you that all precepts pretty much is based off of the American precepts. It's based off of the concept of the 10 Commandments, right? So the 10 Commandments are the precepts. I think it's Hebrews 9:27 or 26, 9:27 or 9:26 tell us that Moshe gave every precept, right? And so a precept is a rule or ordinance that's designed to govern moral behavior. That whole moral law, ceremonial, all of that kind of stuff come from the 12th, 1200 would be 1100 would be the 12th century, right? Yeah. So come from 12th century Thomas Aquinas. He's a philosopher who, that didn't come from the Bible, and it don't even make sense. Everything that the Most High spoke to Moshe was designed to govern moral behavior. That's what a precept does. A precept is an ordinance. Look it up. It's Webster's 1828 dictionary. Look up the word precept. Precept is designed. Every precept is designed. It is an ordinance, a rule, a commandment that's designed to govern moral behavior. The law is the 10 Commandments. That's what the law is. The law is the 10 Commandments in itself. Those 10 commandments or the 10 words actually in the Hebrew, the 10 words or commandments as it's translated is the precepts. Those are the precepts. That is the law. Everything else is either an ordinance to tell you how to keep the law. It's a statute and an ordinance is pretty much the same, or a judgment on what happens when you don't do this part of the law. So everything that the Most High spoke to Moshe was designed to govern the moral behavior of Israel. So when they start talking about this moral law, it's for them to be able to chip off parts of the divine teachings. Oh, we're going to keep 9 of the commandments, or we're going to affirm 9 of the commandments. But that Sabbath stuff, no, I don't see it nowhere in the New Testament. That's not a moral commandment. That's a ceremonial or whatever the other part. I forgot with Thomas Aquinas, the divisions, the moral law,
the sacrificial, I think.
Sacrificial law, right, and all of that. So that's Thomas Aquinas foolishness. Everything that the Most High spoke to Moshe was designed to govern the moral behavior of a people called Israel. That's just the truth of the matter. If you go to the language and get in the language, like I said, don't take my word for it. Go ahead and look up the word precept. Make sure you got a old dictionary. Mine's is Webster 1828. Look up the word precept around about the time when they wrote the King James Version, which was 1611. So this be about 200 years afterward, but it's still Old English. It's still in the Old English language. And when you look up that word precept, it's going to tell you that it's a commandment, or ordinance, or a rule that's designed to govern moral behavior. Every last one of those 10 commandments was designed to govern the moral behavior of a people. And then everything else that we have tells us how the ordinances and all of that tells us how to keep those 10. All they said is 613. That comes from the Talmud. One of the Jewish guys from the Talmud or what have you said 613.
I'm out. Hey, no, I was gonna say I'm out, man. I appreciate everybody's support. I'll hit you up tomorrow, Sam, to see what we'll probably tackle next. Everybody who supported us, hey, I say hallelujah, all praise to you guys, and we'll see you next time. All right, man. Holla.
Hey, shalom, Mike.
Shalom, bro.
Hey, appreciate you for the work you putting in, bro. Like, yeah, I appreciate the lessons, bro. I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, thank you, man. Hey, it's all praise to the Most High, man.
Yes, sir.
Honestly, I'm gonna tell you something. And I'm gonna make this quick. I've been studying the book ever since like 2001. And I stay on the bench, and you got to be careful when you jump out and want to teach people. You gotta be careful, man. I've seen people who wanted to be more than what they are, and they jump out and they're teaching people and they're misleading people, and then their faith is just toe up. It took me a minute to learn this Galatians, you know what I'm saying, to make the argument. I mean, Orthodox Moore, he seen me last year when I was battling a dude named Critic, and how I was having problems with him, running to Galatians and running here. But the Most High, he actually clearly gave me revelation on how to see the book of Galatians and how to see some of Paul's letters. So people have to be very, very careful when you step up there and start teaching. Sometimes it's okay to sit on the bench and learn and get your revelations. That's why, I try not to be seen so much, because there's still some things I'm still learning and still taking in. And with that, I yield.
No, that's what's up. No, I appreciate you for your time, brother, man. Real talk.
Yeah, bro. So I'm getting ready to get out of here too. I appreciate everyone that tuned in. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You wanted to have some final words, Brother Moore?
No, I just want to say shalom to the fam, shalom to the panel. You know what I'm saying? Shalom to the chat. And I appreciate y'all for going in so in depth, because I think it's a conversation that needs to be continued and completely understood, so people can kind of like wash themselves a little bit and kind of understand what they're really having beef with and whatnot. Because when you really go through it to the depth that you guys have gone through it, I think it makes clear what you guys are saying, what your arguments are, to where it's not, you're not saying, yeah, you have to keep the whole law, etc., in order to have salvation, etc., whatnot. It's like what you just said about, like, no, you got the 10 Commandments, and then you got everything basically modifying thereof, or being a representation thereof, etc., or judgment thereof, etc. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right. Absolutely, bro.
that was a beautiful. Y'all broke it down. So I appreciate y'all for your labor and whatnot, your time and whatnot, and then definitely appreciate the lessons, man. So much appreciated.
All praise be to the Most High through his Ruach, bro. You know, we wouldn't have been able to do it. Like I said, the census is against us. You know, the prevailing view is against what we're teaching here. It's against us. You can find 1,000 people over 2,000 years that will tell you something totally different than what we brought out here. And so it was an uphill battle, but you know, we knew we had the truth that's rooted and grounded in the book, the primary source, and then we had the historical evidences to back us up, so we wasn't going to back down, you know. And so you guys stand by for the documentary. We're working on a video documentary that we want to bring out, and Brother Yehukanan and I are working. We're going to try to get Sister Shanti, Brother BA, and Brother Renzo in on the book as well. So it's a book coming out as well. All these folks making these writings and, you know, stuff and books and commentaries on Galatians. We'll be bringing that out as well. So you guys keep us in your prayers for that. And Brother Sean Harris, I see you in the building, bro. I appreciate you tuning in. Everyone else that tuned in, I really appreciate you guys. Please don't forget to like, share. Don't forget to share this video so we can get the word out, so we can compete. These guys really don't take us serious because we don't have as many subscribers as they do with their tens of thousands of subscribers. And so they can afford to kind of just push us off to the side sometime. So you guys help us out by sharing the video, making sure you subscribe and like all that good stuff. And we appreciate it. We'll continue to bring forth, quality Bible study, you know, systematic Bible study. So we appreciate you guys. The Most High bless you and keep you. The Most High make his face to shine upon you. The Most High lift up his countenance to you all and give you peace. Shalom.